Gaming news today is all about Bungie losing their independence, and some would say this is a bit of karma for a variety of reasons. Others would say that PlayStation might have buyer's remorse after spending $3-something billion on a company who is now seemingly not in a great place. Their content continues to decrease in demand, which means they're generating less revenue. And a lot of folks are sort of just enjoying this slow motion car crash from the sidelines, but Destiny fans are left wondering, what does this mean for the future of the franchise? Will Destiny 2 continue to go on? Will they have to do Destiny 3? And there's, maybe 10 people who want Marathon to still launch. Those 10 people are really hoping it gets across the finish line. There's a lot to discuss here. I have 3 different content creators that I'm going to react to. They discussed it. We did this before. I did this with the Edge of Fate, and you guys seem to really enjoy it. There'll be timestamps below. What we've been doing now is just sort of opening up the show for about an hour and just kind of talking about the subject. And then I've got particular timestamps in these videos that I want to go to kind of establish not just the loss of independence, but like the leadership issues at the company that led to this. And then just sort of looking at Marathon and the future, like what are they going to be doing given the current state of things, not just with their, game currently, their cash cow Destiny doing so poorly, but also Marathon seemingly set up to be the next colossal failure and flop. Not since Concord we've seen anything in such low demand or, has received so much criticism. But, that's the ultimate questions right now. We're going to be looking at those videos from Astacross, Evase, and Mint Blitz. So be sure to look for those timestamps below and always support the original creators in the original videos. Obviously, I like to use videos well after they've been out on the platform. I'm also not even using these entire videos. I don't want to serve as a replacement for other people's content. So use those links below and support them. If the links and the timestamps aren't there, just bark at me in a comment because I am going to be doing gameplay today. I'm going to jump into the Hell Is Us demo as well as Echoes of the End, and sometimes that makes it difficult for me to go back and add those things to the description. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the due diligence to make sure you're able to jump ahead as well as check out the original content. Now, if you're watching this later, be sure to hit like and subscribe and all those things. And just a little bit of housekeeping. Now more than ever, we really need folks to consider supporting the channel directly. This is a fan-funded operation, and we had a bit of a snafu with some things that we have since rectified, but we are still heavily dependent on people gifting members, and we would like that to sort of change over time. Also, members content site-wide on YouTube is being shown to people who are not members. Just this morning, a friend of mine texted me, and he was like, I went to a channel that I use for like workouts, and I couldn't even find a video I was allowed to watch. He's like, it was annoying. He's like, and had I not spoken to you, I would not have understood what was going on. I have passed that on to my partner manager as a piece of feedback that this is really, really harming the user's experience. I am sorry that that is happening. I do not have control over it. So just some housekeeping there. If you're frustrated by that, we all are, and we're hoping that YouTube will give us a little bit more control over that. I'd really rather you just see my uploads and my live streams because that is generally what we want going out there to the subscriber base. That's why we create the content. So we hope that that can be rectified. So those of you in the live audience right now, be sure to hit that like button. Get us those first 100 likes very, very quickly. That is extremely helpful to the video. It helps to kind of get out there to find more people. I know people really like it when I talk Bungie. I know you like it when I cover Destiny. We've tried to spread this coverage out. I know that sometimes the news cycle can get into a bit of a flat tire, and that's just what we have to deal with. Like, I can't control what is sort of sparking up and being revealed and, needing to be covered. But we are committed to variety gaming coverage, and sometimes that means we're going to spend a week sort of hovering around subjects that are all very much interrelated. And this is certainly interrelated to a lot of the stuff that I have talked about with PlayStation and with their future and the next 4 years and sort of their goals. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you guys so much for being here. I already have some people to thank. Starting the day off, Han shot first, and so did you. Tacos and Burritos hitting 28 months over there on Twitch, and then another person using their Prime sub. Thank you, Furious Impulse, for 4 months. Whether you guys support with a paid sub over there or you use your Prime, they both support me. Yeah, and it's a way to get past those pesky things that nobody likes to see on these platforms. I have since paused those things right now on the live stream on YouTube. They may pop up periodically throughout this stream, and they're going to take an early lead. And we are back to our roots. Every 25, I'm giving back. We feel like that is a great culture that we have fostered here, and so we're not getting away from that. So thank you guys so much for your continued support in that regard. And when you upgrade, that counts as two. So again, consider upgrading. Anytime you guys upgrade to Member Plus, it's $1 more, but it really, really helps us in a huge way. Another news, Hellblade 2 is out on PS5. Echoes of the End also releases today. I just downloaded the PS5 version of Hellblade 1. Excited to check it out. Hellblade 1 is one of my favorite games. We will be checking out the Hell Is Us demo today, as well as Echoes of the End. They should be installable now, although I couldn't install Echoes of the End. I understand a demo not going live until like a particular time. I'm still not sure why companies don't allow you to preload. Like, I couldn't preload Echoes of the End. I'm not really sure why that was. But on the subject of Bungie and the sort of Bungie Sony takeover, we all sort of saw this coming. I had an upload about this over the weekend, so if you guys didn't see that, you know, there was a lot that led to this. Number one, there were those early rumors. I don't know if you guys even remember this, but there were those early rumors that, like, hey, you know, Bungie might get taken over if they're unable to really turn things around. And that was before the layoffs. That was before any of those significant things that developed, like Pete Parsons' blog and all of that. Before that even happened, there was rumors, there was, you know, situations with, you know, like, I think employees were speaking, and there was this thought that, like, there was a board, and, like, Herman Hulse was on the board. We could never really get concrete info on that, but it did seem like a takeover was, you know, a potential reality that was going to come. Well, then, obviously, Bungie goes through everything that they went through. They have significant lower demand than they're hoping. They're concerned. They're worried. Even after everything seemingly was doing better, they still lay people off. And Pete Parsons obviously sort of takes the brunt of that and says he put the company into the red by spinning up all these incubation projects. Now, it's been my sort of contention that those incubation projects represented a goal at Bungie. And that goal was to get away from Destiny. And that's because they've been on Destiny for such a long time. If you think about the fact that, like, Destiny launched in 2014, which is 11 years ago, that was probably 4 or 5 years of development. That means they've been on this game for 16, 17 years, maybe more, right? They're closing in on being close to 20 years. Like, let's say it's 17 or 18 years. That's a long time for the studio to be working on Destiny. And we have a hype train started over here on Purple. Thank you so much. And Lightleap hits 48 months over here on YouTube. That's a big one, Lightleap, man. That's a long time. 4 entire years of support. I know you're not here as often as you used to be, but continuing the support means a lot. This is woo-woo, finally a real milestone. Keep it up, brother. Speaking of Destiny, today we'll send you the new Titan armor. I saw in a video. It's worse than Star Wars. Well, let me add you to the count here. We're at 109 on the week. And a $2 super chat from It's Tommy, mate. What platform are you getting Battlefield 6 on, and why? I will likely be getting it on the PlayStation 5 because that's where I play most of my games now. I will gift a member. I know I could probably get it on my... I've got a really nice PC with like a 5070 Ti or whatever in it. But I only got that for streams where I kind of like need it. It's also a good backup streaming rig. I game in my living room almost all of the time now. I don't come into the office to play, which is what I would have to do. Like, my wife's out there on the couch. I'm sitting there working my way through, you know, first Berserker Kazan. She and I have been able to beat Returnal recently. That was really fun and enjoyable to kind of share that game with her because it's one of my all-time favorite games. So I don't think I would have much use of Battlefield on a PC. I also would prefer... Yeah, that's pretty bad, Lightleap. That looks like he's wearing pool floaties. I mean, he is wearing pool floaties. Goodness gracious, why is that armor even in the game? Guys, quickly as you're coming in, we're in the first 10 minutes of the show. Make sure you guys are smashing that like button. It is super, super helpful. Can we get a shaking fist emoji? What do you need a shaking fist emoji for? Not here as often, not able to engage as much, says Lightleap, but when I can, I still love it here. It is great as ever. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I only asked because I was a bit shocked when I saw you playing on PC rather than on PS5. I didn't play on PC. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? A particular game? I played Battlefield 6 beta on my PS5 Pro. I mean, someone from PC joined me through crossplay, and then we ended up in kind of a sweaty PC lobby. At least that's what it felt like to me. I thought it was skill-based matchmaking. I think it was my buddy joining and crossplay being turned on. I think we got thrown into a pretty rough lobby, but I didn't play the game on PC. I played Morbid Metal demo on PC the other day. That's one of the reasons I got a nice rig, is because there's a lot of demos and things like that that I can't... it must be on drugs then. I think maybe you just misheard. I might have been talking about my time in Battlefield, and I may have said it in passing, and you thought that I was like indicating I played on PC. Yeah. I have not seen the new Helldivers trailer. No. I've not. It wasn't a rough lobby. That map's just poorly designed. I mean, we played 2 games in a row that were pretty rough, and it was just like... we were going up against players that I was no match for. I'm just, I made a joke. If you guys didn't see the short, like I threw out a joking short last night, like you want casual dad gamers in your game. Like Destiny PvP was notorious for this. People calling pulse rifles dad rifles. And it's like, you want dads in your game, man. You want us casual dads in there. It's, you don't want us leaving your game. It'll get really sweaty when we're not there anymore. Haley says it's stupid. Only gaming developers come up with this BS. It's annoying and stupid. Gearbox and Bungie are guilty of this. I don't mind stupid trying additional projects, but even if you've been making something for 5, 10, 20 years, that's a business identity. You got to keep going on what made you millions. Well, again, from a logistical perspective or even a planning perspective, Hilly, I think they knew. I think they were keenly aware of what you're talking about. I don't think they were like, okay, so what Gearbox did, like instead of building Borderlands 3 and instead they did Battleborn, that was a very different situation. That was a very different decision. Bungie seemingly knew that Destiny was their cash cow. They left a lot of people on Destiny. You were the 100th? Thank you, Derek. So I don't think they were like unaware of what you're saying. I think what happened is the loss of bandwidth and the loss of people, working on Destiny 2. It's just gonna lower quality. It's unavoidable. You can't maintain a game of that, that size and that grind. You can't really maintain it with less people. I mean, this is what was really remarkable in their feedback to Naughty Dog about factions. How, like, they basically told Naughty Dog, you would need to become a live service studio to support this game. Meanwhile, Bungie was sort of being hypocritical in they were spinning up other projects and not having everybody support Destiny. And they knew, I mean, they had to know from those early years. There were those early years where they literally needed Vicarious Visions and High Moon Studios to maintain a cadence of content. Like, they knew better than anybody. If you start to pull bandwidth away from Destiny, it's going to be bad. What they didn't know is that Destiny ran its cores. Well, and they sort of expedited it, Eugene. I think they knew that the Dark Light saga coming to an end was going to cause drop-off. Like, I'm just kind of assuming that they knew that. I don't know how you wouldn't. They expedited that because the runway to the Dark Light saga coming to an end, they were doing all this other stuff, and it was pulling away from Destiny. I mean, it was obvious. I remember seeing the clip of, I think it was Glad, who was just pointing to all the things that were basically exactly the same. And it was like, I hadn't even been playing in a while. I looked at what he was saying and showing, and I'm like, I mean, that looks like stuff that I engaged with before I got kicked out of the game. It was like I think they expedited it. They made it happen a little bit faster. Just reuse all your assets constantly, easy. Right. If Bungie makes Destiny 3, will they have to use the Decima engine? And if so, will it have the same look and feel? I mean, I don't know if they would ever have that mandated to them, Minch Tree. PlayStation doesn't do that. PlayStation doesn't mandate. A lot of the confusion about this topic in particular sort of centers around the live service thing. They thought that these companies were being mandated to make live service. That is simply untrue. They increased budget spend for live service And in so doing, they received pitches from people. And the studios pitched their games, and then they got the green light, so they got the funding. So Bend and Bluepoint were not forced to work on whatever it is that they were working on. Now, thank goodness they've been taken off those projects, because I don't think it was wise to have, your single-player studios working on stuff like that. But in that vein, to answer your question, I don't think like PlayStation would walk in the room and be like, you got to use Decima. Now, I do think if anybody's paying attention, they would tell Bungie, you guys have got to get into a different engine. It takes too long to do anything. Now, they'll deny that the engine is archaic. I believe there was an interview where somebody said that they didn't view the engine as archaic. They had made lots of updates, and that like they can't imagine a Destiny not being in Tiger. But the problem is, and I've said this for many years, and this is, I remember saying this when I covered Destiny full time. I said that in my mind, future live service games will only ever be able to keep up with player habits when new technology is developed that allows them to create content in a much more faster and expeditious manner than they do now. Now, we may be on the cusp of that technology with AI, generative AI especially. We may be on the precipice of that, where it's like, hey, we can make content fast enough, we can have content that iterates on itself fast enough to keep people satiated. Like, you're never going to make enough content. Content that takes them a year to make can be burned through in like a week by the average player, a couple of days by a hardcore player. Is Decima more impressive or just as impressive as Unreal Engine 5? I think like any tool, it's as good as the hands of the craftsman that holds it. Like I can have the most expensive tools and I could never frame a door. My buddy could use basic tools and he could frame a door expertly, right? So I think Decima is a fantastic engine, but you got to have it in the hands of the right people. Like we've seen great things in Death Stranding 1 and 2. Well, Kojima worked with Guerrilla directly to get to that point. It's not like he just walked in the room and was like, yeah, let me have that engine, I'll do a great job. Do you know if next graphics settings will be like PC? I'm not answering your question, Pan, because it's not on topic. Coming in and immediately asking questions about another topic is really disruptive. You got to do that a little bit later in the show when it's more freeform. Like the way that YouTube operates, you can't just start a stream about Bungie and start talking about all these other things. It's not a good idea. Decima is good and the people using it are skilled. This is true. So like he co-built the engine with them. Right, like he collaborated with them in those early days with Guerrilla and with Decima. So there's a lot of things that you're going to find inside of Horizon or inside of Death Stranding that are sort of, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like their home turf, if that makes sense. Right? It's like their home turf. So what I would say is, if you're going to build Destiny in another engine, you wouldn't just pick an engine and be like, well, Decima's good, Unreal's good. What you would do is you would say, is there an engine that increases the likelihood of us being able to make the game feel like Destiny? That's the ultimate question. The question's not, are there other engines and can they use another engine? Which engine is going to get them the closest to that look and feel of Destiny? Because that is a token of the game. It's got to look and feel like Destiny. Mr. Grimm gifts a member. Thank you so much. That bumps the line to 110 on the week. We are back to every 25. And the battle between the platforms, it's 2-2. Thank you so much, Mr. Grimm, for paying it forward to somebody. Engine's basically a programming tool. Essentially, think of an engine like a giant warehouse with tools outside of it. And you can like reach into the warehouse and place things and move things. And then that's kind of the world that the game runs in. Right? That's essentially what an engine is. And Decima could certainly be a great engine for Destiny. It could be. I don't know. Unreal could. It's not, again, I don't think it's necessarily a question of like, oh, are there other good engines out there? It's, could Bungie collaborate with others Could they collaborate with guys at Guerrilla? If you've got guys and gals at Guerrilla that were there when they were making shooters in Decima, could they collaborate with them and figure out how to capture that feeling that Destiny has? Does anyone remember the game engine of Anthem? Oh, Anthem was in the, what is it, Frostbite? That one that they said has razor blades in it? A $2 super chat. They should use the modified Quake engine, like Call of Duty has for all these years. The main factor is your devs and what they can use. Switching engines is not an easy for some studios. 343 were effed using Slipspace, says Hilly. It's okay for the current, but nobody else knew how to use it. Yeah, it's really hard to procure talent. It's really hard to get talent at your studio if you're using an engine like Slipspace. That them pivoting to Unreal, it'll be easier to find people that can, come and work at your company. Unreal will be the predominant middleware going forward. It'll be perfected during next gen. I still like how the old Destiny was more dark and apocalyptic design. Oh, yeah. For sure. The original game had so much of a darker vibe and feel. I saw footage of people playing the King's Fall raid in Destiny 2, and I'm like, I don't know what the frick that is, but that ain't King's Fall. I mean, I'm sorry. I know it's the raid that I kind of started my career with, and that's how I got partnered. So I've got a little bit of nostalgia there. But I'm like, that ain't King's Fall, man. I don't know what that cartoonish, over color saturated nonsense is, but that doesn't feel like I'm in the darkness, like I'm not in the Ascendant realm of some worm god where I'm in his sanctuary and the air itself is feels like poison. That's what that felt like. Going into the Ascendant realm to fight him was, I think, one of the most cinematic, most epic moments of the game. And when they brought it to Destiny 2, I didn't think that it looked right. There was the whole tone was off. It almost looked like whenever you see really, really serious things turned into coloring books, that's what it felt like to me. It's like, this is like the coloring book version of King's Fall. You know what I mean? It's coincidentally the same thing happened between Titanfall and Titanfall 2. Remember? Titanfall 1 was much grittier. Now, that I don't remember, Lightleap. I don't remember there being a very stark contrast between Titanfall 1 and 2 in the gritty category. I don't actually remember that. I missed the grid of D1. The art direction of the King's Fall raid and the art direction of the Dreadnought, I think, is some of their best work. I watched a video recently where somebody said anytime they do anything with the Hive, it's the best, right? It just looks and feels dark and terrible. And there was just a change, and I'm not quite sure what it was. Thank you for articulating. I could never put my finger on the difference. Oh, the difference between D1 and D2? Or are you talking about the King's Fall raid in particular? I'm sorry, not Diablo. Destiny 2 definitely feels like there's just too much color. Again, it feels like a coloring book. Witch Queen story was my favorite. Yeah, I heard people really, really liked it. You leave King's Fall alone. It's my favorite D2 raid. Well, I'm not criticizing the raid itself. I'm just saying art direction of Destiny 2 changed so much. Again, it feels like a coloring book. As someone who is stuck with Destiny as a solo casual since King's Fall, I'm kind of happy Sony is taking over. They should bring Seth Dickinson back to write. He created the Hive lore. That's true. Diablo 3 with the 2. That's right. That's exactly right, Hilly. Hive and the Vex. Yeah, the Vex are pretty cool because of the time traveling, time elements. Yeah. D1 and D2, says Thrilla, but I really noticed it with King's Fall, and I couldn't understand why I didn't enjoy it as much. Yeah, there's just something about there was something about tone and setting that Destiny did such a good job with in the first game. I mean, we all remember in the starting on the Cosmodrome, We all remember that starting area. If you wandered down those steps, there was that really strong Hive Knight down there that would wipe the floor with you. And there was something very like eerie and bizarre about that. Like, why would you have that guy right there at the beginning that nobody can fight? And then there was Randall the Vandal. The Vandal way out on the other side. He would come out of that cave, and he was unbelievably strong and hard to kill. And they just, I don't even know if they intended that, but there was something very mysterious about the world, and there was something more foreboding and dark about the world back then. So that if you remember when Vault of Glass came out, many people saw that as kind of a lot of people attribute King's Fall, like, as far as, no, not King's Fall, the Taken King. King's Fall was the raid, sorry. A lot of people attribute the Taken King as being the savior of Destiny. Like, Destiny would have died without the Taken King. I think that's true. But I think Vault of Glass was sort of like the defibrillator. Like, it got the pulse going again. It was like, oh man, this game's gonna die. Like, clear, ka-thunk, and like, that, I believe, is attributed to Vault of Glass. Because it created, Pathalon Phoenix with a VIP plus, bumping the line, making it ones all the way across. 111, thank you so much, my friend. And it is now 3-2 between the two platforms. Vault of Glass created such a sense of mystery and darkness, and also just depth. It was like, wow, there's a lot more to this game than maybe we initially realized. It also showed, I think Vault of Glass showcased Bungie at their best. It created an environment that looked amazing. The mechanics, the bosses, the structure, all of it had this immense feel to it. There was a breadth and sort of a sense of scope. Like, you're going down. You're going down for a very, very long time. And Dwayne comes in with the VIP for 39 months. Don't forget to smash the like button, he says. Thank you so much. Yeah, let's try to get to 200 likes really, really quickly. I know we harp on that sometimes, but man, oh man, does it help. When you guys go crazy on that like button, we sense the difference in the turnout. Did you partake in the loot cave shenanigans? Of course I did. I would rubber band my controller. So this is something that I figured out about the loot cave. So this is going way back, Destiny 1. Maybe this is why they banned me in Destiny 2. They found out that I did this. I'm just kidding. They banned me because they're unprofessional and vindictive. And they didn't want to get caught doing what they knew they did. The loot cave, you didn't even have to shoot. I don't know if you guys realize this. Welcome back, Soldier, as a gifted member. You didn't even have to shoot. You could just stand there, and there would just be engrams everywhere. So I found a spot. There was this little slant in the environment, and you could take a cable. I took the cable, like the charging cable to my controller, and I could like pull it forward so that my character was always walking forward, and he'd like hit the thing. He'd hit the little bump, and he'd like reset. He did bump, and he'd reset. Thank you. Soldier on Music upgrades to Member Plus. That counts as 2 and puts us to 114 on the week. Thank you so much. Guys, those upgrades are more important than they have ever been. If you've ever considered supporting the channel directly, use the upgrade command, bump up to Member Plus. It's a $6 tier versus $5, but it gives us a much better picture of who is supporting the channel directly. We are heavily, heavily reliant on gifted members, and we would like for that to slowly change over the years. So thank you, Soldier, for helping us with that. So yeah, you could just like move in place, and I would come back after hours, and there would just be engrams all over the floor. You know, a ridiculous amount. Soldier says, remember how scary it was going down into the Hellmouth? It was so tense. I won some of that back. I remember I was streaming, and I will never forget dropping into the boss arena of the Dark Blade. And you know, you've never been there before. You've never been in a fight where like you literally, you know, you can't even see. And Eris Morn is like whispering in your ear. She's like, the Dark Blade, he's hunting you. And I remember that being like an incredible experience. because you can hear him, you can't see him, and she has such presence in her voice, and that's all she said. Yeah, a la cool, the Dark Blade, he is hunting you, and you're like, what the frick, you know? And he comes out, he's like, boom, and hits the ground. I think that was that again. That's I think a really, really great moment in the history of, you know, just good environments, good sense of tone, and good use of voice acting. There was a massive ban wave yesterday, hundreds of players, 70% of the contest clears of the new raid were cheaters. Oh, they got them all? Talking about Hellblade? No. Boss room wasn't even that dark. Oh, Darkblade in D2 was so trash. Boss room wasn't even that dark. I was gonna say in D1 it was dark. You couldn't see anything. It was like somebody shut the lights off in the game. But Lone of the Sparkle Ball is so fun. I think this really gets at the heart of something that we've talked about recently. Like when a game loses its identity, it can be a very subtle thing. Yo, TJ, Boom Boom comes in with 34 months. Summoning Pits. The Ogre breaks the chains. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Nice setup. Okay, we are officially a 10 bomb away from the next milestone. Whoever hits it gets it. So if somebody drops a 10 bomb right now, we're going to hit 125. Whichever platform does it, I owe you a member. Thrilla with a £2 super chat says, if it could have experienced a Darkblade, spoiler free. Oh, you got spoiled for you? Is Death Stranding? You're asking about random games that we're not talking about. I think it's probably pretty obvious that we're not talking about those games. We're talking about Destiny. We're talking about Bungie. We're talking about the, Bungie Sony Takeover. And, when a game loses its identity is kind of what we're talking about now, how, like, Destiny just doesn't really look and feel like Destiny anymore. It's kind of like if you've ever been outside before the sun's come up, there's a point where the sun is all the way up, and then there's a point where it's not at all. And the time in between there, it can be very subtle. It can go from, like, very, very dark and difficult to see to an almost gray to an almost like, well, wait, there's a slight haze of color now, to then, the sun's blazing and bright. Same with the sundown, right? You're like, oh, it's kind of nice out. The sun's still out. And then slowly but surely, that sun goes down, it gets darker and darker and darker, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, let's go inside. It's too dark to be out here. Well, I think that's kind of like a game losing its identity and kind of losing its soul. It's super subtle. It's slow. It's not like instantaneous. Like over time, the game just sort of shifts, and then all of a sudden you're like, what is this? This is not the same game. And I think some of that comes from the aesthetic. I think some of that comes from cosmetics. I think some of that comes from, the environments, the storytelling. So you're saying Destiny 3 is 100% going to happen? I mean, I'm not saying that, but I definitely think that if Sony takes over, that's what they're going to push for. Yes, if they restructure the leadership, I would say. And XCal's going to double dip 39 months of VIP on YouTube, and then another one over here, a Prime sub for 38 months on Purple. That's 38 and 39 months across the two. That's insane, brother. That is absolutely insane. That's 77 months of support between the two platforms. I greatly appreciate it. I'm sad that you guys don't have 77 months over here on Purple, but nice shirt. Thank you. Killing the Worm God in a strike was the moment I knew something was wrong. They had made a bad mechanic. They had made bad mechanic and gameplay choices, but that narrative misstep was a huge red flag. Yeah, no, we're going to play it, Snake Eyes. I've already got my thumbnail and everything created for the Hell Is Us demo. It wasn't downloadable early this morning. I did download the demo for Dead Zone Rogue. Somebody told me, I think I had that wish listed on one of the platforms so I could keep an eye on it, but they don't necessarily tell you when like a demo is available. So let's see here. Yep, there's a demo for Hell Is Us. Let me get that downloaded. We're also going to be checking out Echoes of the End. That releases today. So you guys are going to get multiple showcases of gameplay here today. We try to do that when things are brand new or they've just come out. We try to. And I still can't get Echoes of the End. I'm going to assume that Echoes of the End I'll be able to purchase it in I'm thinking I'll be able to purchase it in about 10 minutes. So let me just switch my monitor back here. Worm God as a Ray would have been sick. I remember that being a pretty heavy point of criticism and contention in the community, that this Worm God was just like a strike fight. I remember when he died, I remember playing it and thinking that like that was it? Like, I thought it was a fake out. I honestly kept thinking to myself, that was fake. There's no way that was real. Guys, take a quick second. If you're on YouTube especially, take a really, really quick second and smash the like button. That's kind of the ritual. You come in, you hit like, and we're greatly appreciated. Everybody who comes every day to the channel, hits subscribe, hits like, and supports what we do here. We had a bunch of content yesterday. We talked about Battlefield. I had a PlayStation upload. I had a short about Battlefield. And now we're in here talking about the Bungie Sony Takeover. And we also will be checking out some other games today as well. English Oat Cake with 40 months. That's a lot of months, English O. Thank you so much. And that bumps the line to 118 on the week. We're still using that goal to unlock Friday night. If you guys double the goal, I have no idea what we'll do. We'll come up with something, but Saturdays are kind of off the table for now. That was really, really difficult to do. And English is going to double dip and support on both platforms. Thank you so much. If you guys pay for Amazon Prime, remember, you can always support on Purple, and it's just included in your Prime. 47 months says, one is wet and can be salty. The other is frequently touched grass. Oh, I'm sorry. What's the difference between a streamer and a stream? One is wet and can be salty. The other frequently touches grass. There you go. On Twitter, Echoes of the End says it'll be releasing at 4 p.m. They did not say what time zone. Well, then we won't be able to play it today. That's too late in the day for me. I'm usually at that time not even streaming. I'm usually kind of scripting and sketching and researching for the next day's show. Yeah, so if it's 4 p.m. Eastern, I won't be able to do that. Saturday nights were only for the pre-family trip anyway. That's true. That's true. I do like having incentives for you guys, though, beyond that. Because, again, we are trying to we're trying to have a bit of a bounce back because the last 8 months we were doing some things that were unhelpful. So we are trying to kind of like rebalance everything. The Wish Ender is a must-have bow. Is Destiny Rising in Tiger as well? I actually don't know what Destiny Rising is in. Destiny Rising engine. I would bet Unreal being on a... no, this is saying it's in the Tiger engine. I thought being on mobile, they would have used Unreal, but apparently it's in Tiger. Echoes goes live in an hour on PS5. I just checked on the PSN site, and there's a countdown. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Is Member Plus $8 now? I was charged $8 this time instead of $6. I was curious if it increased. Did you make your purchase on an iPhone? Because you're paying Apple a portion. Anytime you do super chats, gifted members, renewals, upgrades... Well, renewals shouldn't do that, but like an upgrade, it should not be charging you more, no, unless you did it through Apple. I have not adjusted the price of Member Plus. I can't do that. Yeah. That's like literally, I think that's probably against the law for me to just be like going and like, yeah, everybody on Member Plus is now paying me $20 or whatever. That's not a power that I have. So, they're doing a Borderlands 4 Q&A. Okay. Follow the channel. So yeah, Destiny Rising is in Tiger. We'll see if anything comes from Destiny Rising gameplay to see if anybody could say, hey, they're doing some things that Destiny could learn from. I highly doubt that. It's going to be, I would imagine, a somewhat more stripped down version of Destiny. Like, it's not even a true looter. You know what I mean? It's not even like a true looter shooter. Destiny Rising uses a version of NetEase Messiah engine, not Bungie's proprietary. Well, Google said it used Tiger. It uses NetEase Messiah engine. Oh. I did not know that. Hey, thank you so much, James. Using your Prime sub on me. Now, that's a really, really easy setup. All right, we're at 120. We are exactly a 5-bomb away from the first milestone of today. Whoever hits it gets it. I'm watching both chats. Whoever does a 5-bomb right now, that's the channel, that's the platform that gets the gifted. I'm still giving back every 25. We've kind of gone back to our roots here. Nice setup. Thank you, James, for doing that. Tazzy said it gets super gotcha after a certain point. I tried to warn people about that game well before it came out. I've got a video on the channel somewhere where I was like, this is Destiny in name only. This is not a looter shooter, boys. Like, the way that it was set up, I was like, I don't know. You better be very, very leery of this game. It's not going to be, you know, like, oh, well, it's Destiny on a phone. It's like, well, no, it's not. It's the structure of the loot is what initially gave me significant pause about Destiny Rising. I was like, that does not sound like a loot system that I would enjoy. That's been one of my frustration points with, it was a frustration point I had with both Towerborn and with Linked Banner of the Spark. It's this mobile gamification of loot where you're not actually getting loot. You're getting like a better version of, like, you're always using this particular weapon and you just got a better version. It's not like a unique drop. Like, it looks like you're getting drops, but you're not. Like, I think Towerborn actually was a little bit better in this. Like, it had actual drops, but it still felt very much like a mobile game. Linked Banner of the Spark really felt like a mobile game. I was like, this doesn't feel like it did not feel like I was actually getting gear or getting loot in Linked Banner of the Spark. So it's gotcha, man. It's good. Destiny Rising is way better than Destiny. I mean, how much of that do you think is the new car smell, though? You know what I mean? Could we get 11 more likes, YouTube? Quickly, hit that like button. We haven't even gotten through the first hour of the show. That'll be very helpful. At 1 hour, I'm going to be reacting to some Destiny content creators about the Bungie Sony Takeover. But then they closed it even after saying people could play. Oh, at first they said they were going to let anybody who signed up an option to download the closed beta. Oh, will you be reviewing Lost Soul Aside? I will likely be playing Lost Soul Aside. We are wanting to experiment with, like, as I'm playing through a game, recording footage, and then once I roll credits on it, potentially making a video about it. There's always a difficulty there with, like, weeks later, nobody really cares. But there are plenty of people that do that. There are plenty of people that, like, successfully create content later, you know? And guys, it's still dangling there. This wasn't even a setup by Stonespire. We are exactly a 5-bomb away. Both YouTube and Twitch are sort of letting it hang there. We'll see if anybody takes the bait. Every 25, we're going back. If you guys have been here for a really long time, we had to shift away from this. We've returned to the every 25. The game is a mess. It's like they did not finish the game in the form of half the game works and the other half is missing things and not reworked. What are you talking about? Are you talking about, what game are you talking about is not finished in your mind? I'll make $1 million bet on who the first Destiny content creator Lona will react to. Well, if you were paying attention in the show open, who do you think it is, Jack? I mean, I said it in the show open. I listed all the creators that I had. When are you going over the news? In about 15 minutes or so. Oh, you think Destiny in general has gone down. And remember, plus, from Paul, 37 months, he says 121. Oh, he's bumping the line. He's like, sorry. He's like, sorry, Lono. I'm going to bump the line. That's okay. It makes the 5. If somebody does a 5-bomb now, it's an Agent of Chaos. It's all right, Paul. Astros, a.k.a. your hubby. Well, I mean, he wouldn't agree to that, but... Yeah, he actually is the first clip we'll be reacting to. And then I've got Evase and then Mint Blitz. I was able to search Hellblade and it came up just fine. Do you already have it in your... Oh, you're not talking to me. You're talking to somebody else. I thought you were talking to me. I was like, I am not trying to get Hellblade. I am not buying that game again. No, thank you. You know? I don't know either of those people. Must be not as hot. I mean, it's really unfair. I mean, I know it's controversial to say this, but I mean, Astrocross is a bit of a cam girl. I mean, I'll say it. I mean, somebody should. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't even think the other guys use cams. I don't even think they use the cameras. Helldivers is teasing a Halo crossover. I assumed they would do something. Yeah, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. The armor and the aesthetic would make for a great crossover. That would make perfectly good sense, especially because you're landing on that platform. But yeah, I've got a couple of content creators we'll be reacting to in about 15 minutes. We're going to cover the fact that, yes, they're losing their independence. Bungie is losing their independence. But also we're going to be talking about, like, one of the videos kind of outlines everything that led to this, which is terrible leadership. And then I got another clip from another video just sort of asking the question, what does this mean for the future? What does this mean for Marathon? What does this mean for Destiny? Like, does Destiny 2 just kind of continue and eventually it'll sputter out? There's a really, really interesting clip at a GDC where Bungie was talking about a point where they were really, really worried. And they said that if the player base continued to drop at the rate that it was dropping, in so many months they wouldn't have a player base. I think the concern is now they may be looking at similar charts and coming to similar conclusions. If somebody takes over, do you think they'll cancel Marathon if they take over this year? I think if Sony is able to get control prior to Marathon's launch, I think that they would conclude it needs to be canceled. Do you know what I'm saying? Cross came out and saying he talked about cheaters to the devs. They told him they were not allowed because of upper management. They want to, but they're not allowed. What do you mean? They want to what? They want to talk about cheaters or they want to ban the cheaters? I went to YouTube and found the button. Yes, thank you. Over 200 likes. You guys are crushing it right now. You think next year is going to be the last expansion? I mean, if there was a point in time in Destiny 2's history where they thought if we lose players at this rate, we're going to hit a breaking point. We are not going to have a player pool anymore. I wouldn't be surprised if internally they're having similar panic right now. Because if you look at the player base numbers, it's worrying. It's like, okay, this could lead to Exodus because the next piece of content will likely only make things worse. I don't know if there's a comeback. I really don't. I've consistently said that what I think needs to happen is they have to get funding from PlayStation. PlayStation is basically going to have to fund and write a check and essentially agree to publish whatever it is the next thing that Bungie does, and it can't be Destiny 2. It's either Destiny 3 or a brand new IP. It can't be. It can't be whatever it is they're currently doing. Because I don't think Destiny 2 is going to bounce back. Not to the point where it'll generate enough revenue to support the amount of people that they have there. Because a lot of people will run the numbers and be like, well, any live service game would be happy to have that number of players. Yeah, well, not all live service studios have the number of employees that Bungie has. Like, their operational costs are significantly higher than a lot of those, like, smaller studios or smaller teams that have worked on some live service games. It's sad that Destiny will die like this. Why not just end it with the final shape and then take 5 years and do D3? I mean, there is something to be said for, and we've had this debate very many times, and I've always said there's something to be said for going dark. Not like going dark is in like not communicating. People are like, pause? What are you talking about? I mean, I think there's merit to that too. But no, what I'm talking about is like literally go dark. Like the game goes dark, that no updates, nothing. Minimal communication. You know. And then when you finally come back with a trailer for Destiny 3, it would hit with a whole lot of power. You know what I'm saying? I didn't even mean to do that. I mean, sometimes I kind of mean to make the jokes. I didn't even mean to do that one. That one was kind of an accident. Lone Disciple of the Witness confirmed. This is true. I did the grind until 400, but the system is not that bad, but rework everything like more. So you're already at 400. Aren't a lot of people like struggling to get to the 400 number in Destiny right now? The problem with Destiny 2 is that there are no new players. The onboarding is a mess. Yeah, the onboarding's been a mess for a while. We did some streams on this channel of my wife trying out Destiny for the first time. And man, oh man, I was like, dude, I can't even tell what she's supposed to do at times. The menu was atrocious. Now, this was before the Destiny 2 portal or whatever it's called. You know, it was before that. So, you know, and even that, I don't know if that's made anything better. Now, maybe it made things better for newcomers. I think Solstice is going on right now, and they're pretty much handing out free power. Once again, Bungie coming in as the hero after causing the problem. Yeah, they really want to be praised for cleaning up the milk they spilled. I mean, that's been the pattern with them for a very long time. People at 400s are jobless. 37 herd old man living in a mom's basement. Oh, you're saying people at the 400s are jobless. 37-year-old man living in his mom's basement. Or, I mean, maybe they just played a lot. I mean, there's not really a reason to act like they're worthy of insult if they did it. I'm at 350. I don't know what to do next, really. It's leveling to level. It's leveling to level. I don't know if YouTube is having a problem right now, y'all. We are just plummeting in viewership, and I don't know why. That usually means something's going on. If you guys are dealing with buffering or hitches, let me know. I'm seeing nothing on my end. I'm seeing nothing but stability on my end. So if YouTube is giving you some trouble, I am very sorry. Seems like a lot of people are having to refresh for some reason. I did an experiment and I started a new account. And brother, the game wants you to do things without telling you why, who, and in general what the F is going on. A new player presses Alt F4. Yeah, we were just absolutely hemorrhaging. I'm not really sure what's going on. Nobody in chat's complained once. I'm not sure what the issue is. YouTube is having some kind of a conniption. I was 5 minutes behind. I mean, we just lost like 70 to 80 people, and not a single person has complained. I don't know what's going on. Streaming on YouTube has become very, very frustrating. It's like nothing seems to work right. If you have any reasonable amount of priorities in life, you're nowhere near 400. I have a full-time job, a family, and I grind as much as I can. I'm only at 316. I blame that dark comment. That's what it was. They got me. For saying that. I'm still here. That's what I mean. Not a single person has complained about buffering. I don't understand. Usually that's what causes it. Just fine. Yeah, I can check my bit rate and see that we're rock solid stable. No idea what's going on. It's a pointless grind of content we've had for the past 7 years. Speaking about Destiny 2, that will get reset in 6 months with artificial difficulty throughout. The best gear is behind time investment, not skill. No issues here. It must just be purely cosmetic. It's got to be purely cosmetic. What the heck is going on? Do me a quick favor and hit the like button if you haven't already. Let me just check and make sure I don't have anything. No, I don't have anything running that could be potentially causing any issues or buffering for you guys. We're just in an absolute free fall. It doesn't make an ounce of sense. I'm on mobile and it's pretty choppy. I assumed it was because I'm on mobile. I don't know. I don't know. It seems to be fixing itself. So maybe it was an issue with some of the buffering. I had a small blip. Could have been on my phone. Sometimes it only affects mobile, and a lot of you guys don't watch on mobile. A lot of you guys watch on desktop, so maybe it was only affecting mobile users. You're watching on Purple, you got hit with a 3-minute ad. Well, you can completely avoid ads over there if you become a sub. So use Prime or, $5 a month. Over here, I pause them a whole lot more often, but that's only because I can't stop you from seeing them as a member. All good here, says Soldier. Cleaning up the milk they spilled is just so pervasive. Ownership of mistakes is at an all-time low, and taking credit for solutions are at an all-time high. Well, I mean, the issue, too, with the way they've always kind of handled, Destiny over the years, the general issue has been that they will do, this is what it typically feels like. It's almost like breaking a bone that doesn't need to be broken. Like, okay, so have you ever had somebody tell you that this happened to them or a friend of theirs where, like, they have a break and then the bone doesn't heal properly and they have to break it again to set it properly so that it can heal? Bungie will just break a bone. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's seemingly no reason for it. There's seemingly no cause for it. They'll just straight up break a bone and then be like, okay, guys, we realize that was unpleasant and painful. We have now put that bone in a cast, and it'll be healing, and we're listening. And it's like, but you're the one that broke the bone to begin with. Like, what? Huh? Like, and I think for a while it worked. Like, as a psychological experiment, when you have people that are irritated about something and you solve that thing, it can sort of make them feel like a sense of like, whew, thank you. Golly, that was annoying. It's sort of like if there's an annoying noise or some sort of like a nuisance, if you're in a restaurant and there's like a kid crying and then the family leaves, you're sort of like, oh, thank you so much. Now, you're not going to run out and thank that family for leaving. But the cessation of the nuisance or the annoyance can make you feel a sense of celebration. You're like, oh, thank goodness. And I definitely think that over the years, that has happened in Destiny, where they would set up a situation where everybody's very irritated about something, and then they would make it better, and everyone sort of celebrates them making it better. And I think a lot of the times, folks would thank them or be like, well, thank you for listening. But in general, you can only pull that trick so many times before people are like, yeah, okay, enough is enough. It's obvious that you guys are causing the problems. Yo, what's good, Feed? I see you in the chat. Praising them for fixing problems that they created. This is right. Do you think Bungie will still be making and assisting with live service, or rather make something new? I don't think they'll stop assisting with live service, because even a lot of people, I think, completely misunderstand this relationship in this situation. So Bungie has been doing live service now for more years than most companies in existence. There are very few companies out there with the level of experience that Bungie has. Like, very few. You could probably count on one hand the number of companies that are, that have the number of years and institutional knowledge of like maintaining a live service game. And what a lot of people do is, I think they sort of they look at this backwards, and they're like, well, Destiny is bad right now and Bungie is bad right now, therefore they can't speak to any of this. I think that's one of the worst ways to diagnose this situation, is to act like, oh, well, now because things aren't going so well, they should just be quiet and shut up, and they have no right to speak about live service. It's like, okay, well, let's just ask a couple of questions here. Do they have a long history of experience in live service? And the answer to that question is yes. Do they have experiences, both good and bad, that can be very informative to structuring your live service game? And the answer to that question is obviously yes. And then the other question is, well, as they're sort of coming to an end with Destiny at this point, after like 11 years, don't you think that gives them like a unique insight into how a game can come to a close or how a game can come to an end? The only others that do it is like WoW. Yeah, like WoW, or like what, like Final Fantasy 14. How long has Final Fantasy 14 even been out? They have institutional expertise. That's right. So even if they're currently struggling, or they're currently not getting, high demand for their product, none of that, I don't think, is an indication of whether or not they can speak to live service. Even if they're speaking to the live service right now from the perspective of, listen, we've come a long, long way. You know, we've come a long way. And let me tell you, it's unlikely a lot of other games are going to get this far. It's unlikely. And if you do make it this far, as we're coming to an end with Destiny 2, that can be incredibly informative. Like the average live service game, if they make it to 3 to 5 years, they're probably, I would imagine they're pretty elated. But then what do you do if the game starts to kind of do what Destiny's doing right now, which is like you're just gonna peter out. You are. You can't keep it going. Like, how on earth could you expect every single game to just go for forever and forever and forever and forever? There's an end point always. I think they could easily turn this around. They still have the best feeling shooter in the market and one of the most successful live service shooters ever. How many Destiny killers did they outlast? Well, the reason I don't think they can turn this around is because of that GDC talk. Right? There is a Bungie GDC if players continued to drop. Let me see if I can find it. In late 2022, Bungie observed a sharp decline in weekly active players and player sentiment in Destiny 2, a drop faster than anything since 2018. This drop prompted player surveys showing decreased recommendations on the game to friends and declining pre-orders for upcoming things. So, let me see. No, I need the video. There was a video where he like specifically spoke to it. And he literally points to a chart and he was like, if this trend continued, we wouldn't have a player base. I forget the guy's name. I forget his name, but he's the bald guy. He was doing a presentation about it. And again, I would say they're there right now. They're there right now. They've got to be seeing sharp player decline. It was Justin Truman. Yeah, okay, hang on. Let me see if I can find the actual quote. No, I can't find the quote. These are all quotes about like anger. These are all quotes about like people that need to be engaged. Yeah, all I have here is something about they have no intention of abandoning Destiny 2. I've seen the clip many, many times in other videos, and I can't remember the video I watched that had the clip. The problem isn't their insight. The problem is they lie, like when they lied to shareholders during acquisition. Where have you seen it reported that they lied to the shareholders during the acquisition with Sony? As you guys are coming in, we're discussing the state of Destiny and Marathon and Bungie with the Sony Takeover. I do have some videos we're going to be reacting to shortly, usually about an hour into the stream. I kind of go through my notes and my research, and in this case, I went and found a couple of videos about this very topic. How are they surprised that people don't want to engage with Destiny? They create a hostile relationship between themselves and the players. Nearly every interaction is negative. Didn't you report on it when it happened? I don't remember the details. I've never reported on Bungie lying to Sony during acquisition. Now, there was an article that said something to the effect of they seemingly misrepresented where they were standing to get maybe like a greater valuation from PlayStation, but I don't know if it was definitively proved that they in fact lied to PlayStation. I don't know if I've ever read that, covered that, or uttered that sentence that like, yeah, Bungie lied to PlayStation. I believe it was observed by employees that they felt Bungie leadership misrepresented things to PlayStation. Let's see if we can find it. Bungie leadership misrepresented PlayStation. All I'm getting now are all the new stories about them losing their independence. If you want the GDC talk, you need to search for Bungie over delivery. Yeah, there's a particular part where he talks about the player numbers. Bungie GDC over delivery. November Hotel did a video on it 2 years ago. I don't know if in this video, let me see if AI can search it. Where does the video talk about declining player numbers? This is one area where AI has been very helpful, like if you're researching something. The video discusses declining player numbers and retention from 11:58, so around 12 minutes. Let's see if November Hotel puts up the section with the chart where Justin's talking about it. No. He doesn't put the clip up. I'm not seeing the clip. I'm not really sure what I was watching, but Justin was standing there and they talked about they had a clip and they had they had a chart that showed like the player numbers. It's Tizzle referenced it in multiple videos. Yeah, I think It's Tizzle had it. I actually think his most recent video that I watched about it, it could be this one. The nail in the coffin. It could be this video. I'm scrolling through. Yeah. Hang on. Here it is. I got it. This is it. Thank you. Here we go. Let me show you this clip. All right. Let me stop my music.
So this was our weekly active users for Destiny 2 in the first few months. And for comparison, this is what Destiny 1 looked like. So far, so good. But then this started happening. And this moment right here.
No, pay attention. He says this moment right here.
In February of 2018 was fucking terrifying.
Sorry, I forgot he swore there. I apologize for the not safe for work just getting kind of destroyed. Yeah.
So this graph shows the trend of our weekly active users. And at the rate that we were shedding players, we did the math. I remember being in the meeting. We did the math. And if this continued for just 5 more weeks, we would run out of players.
Okay, so track with me here. This is what I've been highlighting. This is what I've been talking about. They were at such a low point that just 5 more weeks of decline, they would run out of players. Okay, now we have talked about this before, and I've always used the term minimum engaged players. Like there's a minimum number of engaged players that you need in your player funnel for your game to work, for your game to be viable. If you can't maintain that player number, your game stops working because there's not enough people for your matchmaking, for your, anything, whether it's PvP, whether it's region matching people so they can just play together. Everything sort of falls apart, as well as just the compounding effect. As you can see, once it starts, what have I talked about? The ball starts to roll down much faster. So this steep decline right here that I'm circling, boom, it actually is I would argue, this is one of the primary causes of this decline right here. This sharp drop causes a ripple effect of other people stopping playing. It just continues. Like you can see right here in Destiny 1, the gray line, look how like the decline, it's almost like it picks up speed. And then right here, we have a similar line and and then see how much sharper this drop is? Like imagine this is a roller coaster, okay? Imagine this is a roller coaster. All of these declines have a very similar trajectory. This one right here in particular is a sharper drop. It's dropping faster, and then it kind of comes back, but it can't. And then it's just from that point on, you can't stop it at this point. And the concern, as he said, was if this continues, we're done. Okay? I would argue we are right here. We are right here in the history. Now, I don't have the exact numbers, but the drop off of players, Edge of Fate being so significantly lower than the last big, content ad that they did. Like, they hit player peaks of like 300,000 on Steam for the previous content ad, and Edge of Fate like barely touched 100,000. Okay, I know that's only one platform, but that's a barometer. That's a barometer. Now, I had pictures from Paul that I'll show you, and I will make my case right now that I believe we are at the bottom of that first sharp drop-off, which will likely lead to exactly what happened last time. The drop-off will continue. The beatings will continue until morale improves, okay? So, what we're about to look at is Final Shape release versus Edge of Fate. So Final Shape release, they hit a player peak of 1.7 million players. Like, that's a lot of players for just one day. Like, everybody comes surging back. Now, obviously, the end of the Darklight Saga is going to have this huge resurgence of players. But again, keep in mind what I'm talking about. I'm establishing that we are at the bottom of the first initial steep drop-off, which means they are likely concerned about what comes after. They know what comes after. When you have that one big first steep drop-off, what comes after is expeditious decline. So this is Final Shape. This is Edge of Fate. 700, not even 750,000. Okay? Not even 750,000. So you go from 1.7 million. This is not even half. This is less than half of the players. That is why I'm arguing here. We're right here. I'm not saying the exact numbers are right here. I'm saying that sharp decline, that quick mountain peak, just kaboom, drop, that's where we are right now. And look what happens after a drop like that. It just continues to go down. And as he said, if it would have continued at that point for just 5 weeks, they would have run out of players. So the concern that they have now is they could be staring down the barrel of a similar decline, which would mean eventually Destiny 2 just doesn't have a player base to speak of. This is why I've continued to say, from where I sit, their best course of action is to figure out a way with PlayStation to fund a Destiny 3. They have to stop being financially dependent on Destiny 2. They have to literally cut their losses with Destiny 2 and let Destiny 2 basically just die. That's what I think is necessary. I don't think you can keep feeding this machine. It's on its way out. That is what I'm saying. Now, I could be wrong, and it could last longer, and it may be in a better decline. Like, maybe it's a slower decline, but having over 300,000 people log in and have your concurrent numbers hit that level just on Steam alone for Final Shape, dropping to a third of that, and then again we have Charlemagne tracking player numbers, going from 1.7 million players to 750,000, that's significant. That is a big drop. I mean, less than half the number of players logging in. That's a huge decline. It might even be bigger than what I'm estimating with that chart. It might even be bigger. So if that's true, I would anticipate layoffs. I would anticipate layoffs coming, because that would mean that they're staring down the barrel of, like, we are absolutely not, we're not making enough money, we're not generating enough revenue. We got to lay people off. That's your fastest way of shielding yourself from, operational costs, is to just downsize. Hopefully, if they do Destiny 3, they will now have access to other Sony studios to keep a strong content funnel like they did with Vicarious Visions and High Moon. Yeah, currently, right now, as of like yesterday, August 10th into the 11th, they had less than 600,000 players. I would say they're actually maintaining. So they are not sliding down the hill very fast. They have certainly hit a floor, but the floor seems to be like reasonable. Like almost 600,000 players logged in yesterday to play. Okay, that's not too shabby. That's not a big drop off from the 740,000 that logged in at the beginning of Edge of Fate. That means they still have a pretty loyal core audience that's logging in. But the drop off from the Final Shape would be the concern. that drop-off would represent a significant loss of revenue, which is what I think would lead to some of the layoffs that I'm anticipating happening. And this is probably a good time to start pulling up some of these videos and reacting to them. So there'll be timestamps, and there will be links below to support these original videos. I'm not going to watch everything, but I am going to watch the opening of Astrocross's video. And then I also have a video from Evase, and then I have a video from Mint Blitz about this. So this is on the topic of the Bungie Sony Takeover. And it is it's going to start with just sort of the Cross is just going to kind of cover it, and then we're going to get into the leadership issues with Evase, and then we're going to get into the future with Mint Blitz. Hang on.
Has seen enough. 3 years after acquiring Bungie, Sony says the days of independence are getting lighter, and its future is to become part of PlayStation Studios. From Andy Chalk right here, this was published 23 hours ago. Bungie was intended to operate as an independent subsidiary when it was acquired in 2022, but that hasn't worked out. Is Pete's garage cooked? I don't know. Hold on, let's just read this. When Sony and
Here's the thing. Pete's fine. That's the thing that people don't understand here is I don't think Pete's in any danger. Now, I don't know if the terms of the contract is going to allow for all these guys to leave with golden parachutes, or if there were performance metrics that needed to be met. But I would imagine someone at Pete's level signed himself a pretty sweet parachute into this deal so that no matter what happens, he rides off into the sunset on a gold-plated horse, or just a new car for his garage.
Announced its intention to acquire Destiny 2 developer Bungie in January 2022 for an eye-watering $3.6 billion. It said the company would be an independent subsidiary under the direction of the studio's then current management team, and that it would remain a multi-platform studio with the option to self-publish and reach players wherever they choose to play.
So that's a really important line that adds a ton of context to Marathon. Guys, if you're watching on YouTube, quickly get us to 300 likes. You guys are actively crushing it right now. Thank you for doing that. But this right here is a super important line. Okay? To self-publish and reach players wherever they choose to play. Marathon, if you look it up, is a published game by Bungie. This, to me, is why the game has not been canceled yet. I firmly believe that if PlayStation was in charge, that sucker would be canceled. After what happened with Concord, they internally pulled the plug on Ben's project. They pulled the plug on Bluepoint's project. Seeing the public reception and the art theft with Marathon, I think if PlayStation was in charge, they would pull the plug. Now, they recently said that the game is still coming out. It'll be out by the end of March of 2026. They said it's not canceled, but but that it still could be or whatever. And there it is, man. That sat there for a long time. A 5-bomb comes in from Dodevas. Thank you so much. And that gets us to 126. There it is. I owe you guys a member over there on YouTube. We're still doing a gift every 25. So thank you so much for doing that, Dodevas, man. That sat there for a while. So keep in mind the self-publishing factor of Bungie is about to go away if these reports and these statements are accurate.
It just seems like a perpetual money machine after all, and Sony saw no reason to fix what wasn't broken. But fast forward through 3 very rough years for Bungie, and things aren't nearly so rosy. And now it seems that Sony has seen enough. As Sony Chief Financial Officer and Corporate Executive Officer Lin Tao said during the company's recent quarterly earnings call that those days of independence are coming to an end. Oh man. Okay, I actually had not tuned in for this. Okay, so quotes at the time of
He's a little shaken by that. Maybe he was going to get to visit Pete's garage, and maybe that's not going to happen. No, I'm just kidding.
Position, we were offering a very independent environment. So that was one way of thinking, Tao said in response to a question about Bungie's future governance via Seeking Alpha, translated from Japanese. However, thereafter, we've gone through structural reform as we announced last year. So from this type of independence, this independence is getting lighter. So Bungie is shifting into a role which is becoming more a part of PlayStation Studio, and integration is also proceeding. So in the long term, if you could see this as an ongoing process, the direction is to become part of PlayStation Studios.
Okay, this is a more significant quote than I had seen. I have not seen this until just now. I saw a very Cliff's Notes version of this. Now, I think the most important part is right here, and integration is also proceeding. Now, this could be going one of two ways. This could be just like integration into SIE, as they've absorbed like 250 some odd people and they even spun up a brand new studio. Or this could be integration in the other direction, and PlayStation could be basically going in and wanting to integrate and set up their own leadership, which is what I believe needs to happen. I have it on very good authority, and this is easy to believe, that PlayStation does not like the way that Bungie operates. They don't like the leadership. They don't like the way the company's structured, which is not surprising, right? Bungie's a very West Coast coddled, I guess I would, I'll say it. They're soft, okay? And you come from a culture where that's like not even a thought. That's not a work ethic. That's not a work philosophy. You're obviously going to be like, like, for example, why the frick did you have knitting classes, right? Why is that a business expense? Why is this a line item at the company, right? So I think there's a clash of cultures. There's a clash of philosophy there, right? And now, not all of you guys out on the West Coast are a bunch of like, soft liberals, but a lot of you are, and that's okay. I still love you. But the point is that I think you had a significant clash of worldview and philosophy here, and that's why very early on you had Totoki talking about accountability. Like, they needed better accountability at the company. Like, he made sure to say that they had a lot of talent at the studio, but he zeroed in. He zeroed in on that leadership and talked about how there needed to be accountability, and it would not surprise me at all that a Japanese company would be almost shocked at the way a company like Bungie is run, as well as just sort of their handling of social media and blogs and, speaking on social matters and the rest. I've seen people from Kentucky, you shouldn't be calling others soft. Well, I'm originally from Ohio, so, I don't get lumped in with the, with the squishy big, good old boys down here. Okay, I'm not squishy. I mean, I could be if I wanted to be, but anyway, let's go.
All right, guys, talk to me here. I'm not like overly familiar with like how Sony's inner working is with their other subsidiaries. Give me an example on this. Santa Monica, is that part of PlayStation Studios or is it independent?
Part of PlayStation Studios.
I got you. So Santa Monica, part of PlayStation Studios.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Cross. I'm always here for you.
All right, so how much of a practical impact that will have on Bungie's future is an open question. Sony has already...
nobody with 40 months, dude. Thanks so much for coming back in. Got us to 127 on the week. I appreciate it so much. The battle between the platforms is raging. It's 16-5. Thank you so much.
Already carved off some pieces of Bungie and brought them under the PlayStation umbrella with little
Yeah, I see you, Dodevas. What's up? Are your messages going through? Yes. I get to 5. Yeah, I added them. I shouted you out. I said that now I owe 1 to YouTube. You must have missed it.
Visible effect, and I could see it being pressed into more of a live service mercenary role for other Sony studios who need help on that front. Bungie CEO Pete Parsons, the car guy, oh my god, he's still in this position. But
hang on. We gotta go back. Listen. Listen to his reaction.
Bungie CEO Pete Parsons, the car guy, oh my god.
That's comedy gold right there. It's so he's like, oh my god. Anyway, yeah, I mean, if they're carved off into pieces, with like doing some sort of live service mercenary role for other studios, I mean, that would be very, very bizarre. I think this would be a mistreatment of the studio and the talent that are there. That would be terrible. I mean, get Pete out of the building. This guy's a trash CEO. He ran the company into the red. I have it on very good authority from former employees. He's a lot of the problem with the toxicity at the company and the and the bad work culture. I think that IGN article that Rebecca Valentine wrote is going to age like milk in the sun, where she let this guy come with like, data sheets in hand to be like, look how diverse we are, and we think women and persons of color are great. And shut the frick up with your virtue signaling. Your company had toxic culture and retaliation culture under your watch, under your leadership. He's cited as one of the causes of that work culture. And everything happening to the company right now is very much reality snapping back on bad leadership. And unfortunately, it's hurting. It's very, very much hurting the company and the people in the lower echelons that will likely then be laid off or under threat of losing their job. This guy should have been out a long time ago, in my opinion.
still in this position, but that could change as well once the studio is fully assimilated. Overall, though, it's quite possible that from an outside perspective, Bungie will continue to lumber along more or less as it always has. Sony is basically a PC publisher now, so the likelihood of long waits for PlayStation exclusive windows on Bungie games to expire seems very unlikely.
Okay, hang on. I want to read this final part. So Sony is basically a PC publisher now, so the likelihood of long waits for PlayStation exclusive windows on Bungie games to expire seems unlikely. Long waits for PlayStation exclusive windows on Bungie games. I don't understand this. There was never an agreement on this. They were going to continue to publish multi-platform games, so this sentence doesn't make any sense. The likelihood of long waits for PlayStation exclusive windows on Bungie games to expire seems very unlikely. This sentence is odd. There doesn't seem to ever have been an indication that they would be doing that, right? And saying so Sony is basically a PC publisher now is also kind of misrepresentative of the company. I mean, they publish primarily on their own platform and PC. And they also, this person doesn't seem to understand, like, these games were never going to be exclusive. So long waits for PlayStation exclusive windows on Bungie games is not a thing that would have happened. Now, it might happen. Maybe that's what they're trying to say. It's not a very well-written sentence. They're saying the likelihood of long waits exclusive windows on Bungie games to expire seems very unlikely. There were no windows of exclusivity on Bungie games. Like, this sentence is super uninformed. Whoever wrote this has either not properly... This is ChatGPT. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It feels like ChatGPT wrote this.
Gummy Bears, which I believe was going to be a MOBA. And if you're wondering why was Bungie making a MOBA,
I'm sorry,
quite frankly, they have a ton of experience in making MOBAs. So it was a no-brainer. Anyways, Gummy Bears got moved from Bungie to Sony. And so...
Listen, I was over here because I don't like to be shown up in the content that I put on the channel. So this is just my insecurity on full display here, okay? Okay, that's all you get. Anyway,
we could see maybe other things move to Sony. Maybe Marathon. Maybe Marathon ends up getting swallowed by Sony. By the way, that's sarcasm. Bungie's never made a fucking MOBA in their life. I have no idea why they were making a MOBA. Look.
Huh? Did he just leak?
2020 was like heroin for game developers, all right? Everybody was on the internet. Everybody thought that this was going to last. People were getting damn PPP loans out the ass. Big companies were able to get just tons of capital. What did these companies do? Or in Bungie's situation, they decided to make 4 or 5 different other games, regardless of what results.
Yeah, so what he's speaking there to, I don't know if that's just an indication of 2020. I think it's kind of a both and. So I think he is correct in that, like, 2020 caused people to think that, like, oh man, we're going to be sitting high on the hog for the foreseeable future. Let's keep this going. I also continue to think my diagnosis of the situation, knowing what I know about Bungie and how they operate, I think they were trying to build themselves bridges away from Destiny. They did not want to make Destiny for another 13 years, which is what would have been required if they decided to do a Destiny 3. There was no plans to do Destiny 3. That right there, I think, is a giant breadcrumb in my, investigative mind here. Like, if I'm trying to trace the breadcrumbs here and trying to make out a pattern on the graph, I think them not planning to do Destiny 3 is the strongest indication that we could have that they wanted to get away from the property. Now, Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy were allegedly working on something that was going to include, like, Destiny IP and lore, and you're going to play as, like, heroes. It was going to be third person. But I still think that was only one of many incubation projects, which isn't surprising. Like, Noseworthy and Luke, I think, had a much maybe stronger affinity for the Destiny, IP to keep things going. I think they also were thinking about, like, TV shows and movies and stuff. But I do think they did not want to build a game that they were going to have to live in for another decade. I don't think they wanted to do that. So I don't think 2020 is the only cause there, but I do think it is part of the equation.
This outcome feels inevitable. Bungie's struggles with Destiny 2 in recent years have been well documented and have led to public dissatisfaction from Sony. In 2024, PlayStation chairman Hiroki Totiki called...
Cross. Come on, dude. What was that pronunciation? Come on, man. Let's go. I am the last person to lecture about pronunciation, but I'm going to enjoy this moment for a little bit because I mispronounce things all the time.
Public dissatisfaction from Sony and 2024 PlayStation Chairman Hiroki Totiki called.
It's funny. It's funnier. It's funnier the second time. Hiroki Totiki. Listen, I love Cross. I do. But this might be one of the easiest Japanese names to say. Like, it's kind of a great name. Hiroki Totoki. It just kind of rolls off the tongue. This is a mark. This is a mark against Cross. Okay, I've never been very critical of him, but I think this is pretty bad. This is pretty egregious, okay? Anyway,
called for more accountability from Bungie leadership on
yeah, we need accountability on your pronunciation, as Cross. I'm just kidding. All right, I'm done.
Development budgets and deadlines. The studio's public image has taken big hits over the layoffs at the studio that have reportedly left employee morale in free fall, while controversies over stolen assets, endless bugs in Destiny 2, and a seeming inability to do anything with Marathon have left Bungie looking like a studio that's simply incapable of managing its own affairs. The recently released Destiny 2 The Edge of Fate expansion, which Bungie desperately needed to be a hit, was instead a catastrophe to the point that PC gamers Tim Clark, a man who once ignored multiple tornado warnings so he could finish a raid, wrote that he is worried for both the future of the game and its studio.
I love this freaking crap. It reads like comedy. A man who once ignored multiple tornado warnings so he could finish a raid. Like, there's a hyperlink to that story. Yeah. Hiroki Totiki. Hiroki Totiki. Anyway, this is great. This is absolutely fantastic. This is one of the best videos I've ever reacted to. No, but I agree with the sentiment here, though, that like Edge of Fate, you know, if they needed Edge of Fate to kind of put gas back in the tank, to give them a higher floor, to give them a higher player count, to put them into a more stronger position, that has not happened.
From a number perspective, yes, which I guess to most of you would say that's.
Listen, if I'm not going to put my camera in front of him, but I have to I didn't mean to pause it there. I have to downgrade him a little bit, man. Okay, we'll go with that.
That's all that matters. Keep in mind, Destiny 2's numbers were fantastic. The best it was ever, right? We had so many people playing Destiny 2 at launch, but core players, we hated it. We thought it was terrible. Edge of Fate is definitely no like final shape, and it's the start of this new saga, but it's a pullback in the budget, and we're getting like these 2 expansions per year. But I don't think that Destiny 2 is going to do the numbers. It's definitely not going to be able to do the numbers to support Marathon and 2-3 other games in incubation. It should never have even been pushed in a corner to do that. Why Bungie didn't just completely commit there to Destiny, I have no idea, dude.
Again, this comes back to my theory. They determined that doing Destiny for another 10 years was not in the cards. I don't think they wanted to. I really don't think they wanted to. Like, I think they did internal assessment, and it's like, this is really hard on the company. It's really, really difficult. Like, historically speaking, they had High Moon, they had Vicarious Visions, they go independent, and then after going independent, they're almost immediately like, oh, frick, we need money. Like, I think it was just really, really hard on the company, and I just think they determined that, like, we can't do this again. We can't sign up for this for another 10 years. We won't make it. We'll lose people. Like, they probably had people in significant positions that were like, listen, if we sign up for Destiny 3, if that's what we decide to do, I'm walking. I'm out. I'm going to take my pension, and I'm going to get the heck out of here. I don't want to do this again. I don't want to do it again. That's been my assessment and diagnosis of the situation. So Cross is going to move into some other things. That's the segment of his video that I wanted to watch. He's only got like a few seconds left in that section. Well, hang on. Let's let the section finish. Hang on. Let's really, really quickly let the section finish. Oh, hang on. I muted it.
They're like, hey, Destiny's printing money. make more Destiny. You know what I'm saying? I suppose that's one upside to all of this. Unlike, say, Firewalk Studios, Bungie is a big name with a long history, and it will survive. But in what form exactly and where its future will lead is anyone's guess. So let me just say this. Yes, it's very likely that Sony will, in fact, you know, pretty much take over all of Bungie, but they're not going to let the Bungie name die. You know what I'm saying?
This is where I agree with Cross, and that can be the final point that we pull from his video, because I have other videos I want to check out. This is where I agree with him. I don't think you want to burn the name. The name has been around for far too long. They're the makers of Halo. They're the makers of Destiny. And I do think if you lose that name, you lose a ton of value in the market. Like, there's a lot behind the name. And I still think a Destiny 3 announcement or trailer a couple of years from now would actually hold a lot of weight and would get a lot of attention, and I think it would potentially be, you know, a big draw. A big draw. I don't think you would want to lose that name and like siphon people off and move them into all these other directions. Now, I will say this is what I have continued to say. If PlayStation determines with new leadership or installing their own leadership that the best course of action for Bungie is to make Destiny 3, and they're willing to fund it, because you're not going to be able to fund Destiny 3 off of Destiny 2. I think that's obvious. I think the revenue is going to get too low, okay? They're going to need to fund it. I don't just think they're going to need to fund it. I think you're going to have to fund it and pull people off of Destiny 2 and just let Destiny 2 wither on the vine. I think that's the only way to handle it. Like a live support team for, you know, patches, bugs, anti-cheat. That's about it. That's about all you're going to be able to afford, okay? But if they determine that they're going to do that, I think, and I've said this many times, I think one of their best courses of action would be to say, how many of you here, if you don't want to work on Destiny, would you like to work at one of other studios? And then I think you go to all your other studios and you say, hey, is there anybody out there that would like to change in role? Would you like to come over and work on Destiny 3? You know, we know that Bend was working on some type of a live service shooter, and there may be people that are like, you know what, I'd kind of like to take a crack at that. I think I've got some good ideas. That would be my approach. You don't want people working on Destiny 3 that are doing so begrudgingly. You don't want people working on Destiny 3 that are like, well, this is our only option. You're not going to get a quality product out of that. You just aren't. So yeah, my opinion is they need to shut down the servers for Destiny. Well, that was a video about them losing independence. Now I want to go to a video about the leadership issues, and this one comes from Yves. So we're going to check this one out and see what he has to say in particular to the leadership issues.
Changes throughout the whole media. But there's no doubt when it comes to Bungie, leadership was a major issue. They failed to manage one of the most successful studios in the world. Too many incubation projects. Bad decisions when it came to developing their flagship title. And in the midst of all those startup projects when you didn't know how things would go, building a brand new studio next door.
You guys remember this? I mean, I think some people forget about this. They were expanding their headquarters to be enormous, and did they ever actually successfully open the studio in Amsterdam? They wanted to open like a whole nother studio. They wanted to become like a publisher. Is this AI speaking? No, I think he speaks very, very matter of factly and very carefully. I don't think he's going to be like, he's not going to be speaking quickly like me or anything like that. This is just kind of the way he speaks. But yeah, I don't know if they ever even did that. I don't know if they ever decided to like, oh yeah, we've got this other studio that we want to build. They want to get into publishing and all that. I think all that just went completely belly up.
With the layoffs last summer, we learned that some of these projects were canned. Bungie would continue Marathon and Destiny development, but others were removed. And one project called Project Gummy Bears was moved into Sony entirely. They're developing that on their own. But as for this merge with Sony, this also isn't new. It just seems that Bungie's chance to prove themselves is finally over. And instead of having some of that individuality as mentioned, which Bungie wanted when they joined, we're getting to a point where Sony will fully make the decisions. The way I read this, Bungie still exists just inside Sony. Just like the other PlayStation studios, major ones that have been successful too. Naughty Dog, The Last of Us, Sony Santa Monica, God of War, so on.
And here I think is a distinct difference that's worthy of mention. There's a significant difference between a studio coming under PlayStation ownership because they see such quality work and they see such quality stuff, like they did with Insomniac, like they did with Housemarque, like they did with a lot of these studios, right? Like the relationship sort of grows into something like, hey, you guys are kind of killing it. We want to kind of fold you in. This is going to be very different. This will be a context of takeover, which I think is a very, very different context. 2 Street, thank you so much. This takeover has more chances to go well than bad. Destiny 3 is interesting. I would be curious to see if Sony handles that. They have a tendency to let teams do their own thing, with Sony giving fundamental greenline funding. Yeah, I missed your super chat the other day, and I am sorry about that. It was like at the tail end of a broadcast, and I apologize for that. You did a $20 super chat the other day, and you said, sorry I missed the morning show, but did you talk about the Sony news, Bungie getting absorbed fully, 80 million consoles sold, $1 billion operation income, admission that live service is not entirely going smoothly? All those videos ended up being coverage on the channel, so thank you for the $20 then and for today. It's very generous of you to support the channel in that way. Guys, one of the best ways to support the channel right now, given the last 8 months of a bit of a mistake that we were making with gifteds that we have fixed, is through using the tip command or super chats. So thank you to everybody who has continued to do that. But yes, I was just going there, right? I was just going there. You forgot about that? I felt so bad because I ended the stream and I saw your super chat and I felt really bad. So I was reminded just now to read that and to say thank you to you. So again, going that route of thinking, PlayStation is typically a very hands-off. They let these studios kind of do their thing, which many people don't understand. They think that like Sony's mandating all these things. They think that Sony mandated the Last of Us factions to be created. That's not true. They think they mandated that it was canceled. That's not true. Those were all decisions made by Naughty Dog on their own. And that would be the big question here, is that if there is some kind of a Sony takeover and they do say, hey, we would actually really, really like Destiny 3 to be your next big project, how exactly is that handled? Is that something that is dictated? Does Sony integrate and institute their own leadership? You know, that these I think would be good questions to ask, because if they are going to be taking over, what level of independence would even remain? Would it not even be like a Santa Monica or a Guerrilla or a Naughty Dog where like they're allowed to kind of do their own thing? Would that not even be the case either? That I think is a good question.
At first, Sony was like, hey, Bungie is actually one of the only successful studios running a live service game for this long. They even went independent from Activision and still launched titles and expansions that thousands of people played. We at Sony want to learn from that. And that seems to have been a major reason Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. At one point, Naughty Dog was even making a live service game, and they brought in some of the Bungie developers to ask them questions and pick their mind about how a live service game like that could work. But since the deal, after missed targets and failure from Bungie's leadership, things had to change. And that began when these layoffs took place. It has been happening for over a year. Some of the Bungie devs already merged into PlayStation Studios very early on, and you can see that on their titles changed on platforms like LinkedIn and ArtStation. And that's not to say they still aren't working on Destiny and Marathon Bungie projects. I've seen some developers showcase Destiny art, for example, but their name is under PlayStation Studios. So that could be the case for some. They could have moved some of those devs to other Sony projects too. But the point is, Sony now decides what Bungie does. That began slowly last year, as the call mentions, and in the long term it seems more of this will happen, and eventually Sony will fully control Bungie.
Well, and I think that's been one of the leading things that employees have talked about. So the hope would be that this takeover is not just like paper oriented, like, well, now we're, you're no longer an independent subsidiary, but like you would actually go in and restructure leadership.
From a player perspective, this could be good and bad. Some Destiny fans have longed for Sony's takeover after word about how leadership handled things spilled out. Bonuses for some of the executives, buying cars while other employees were laid off. Maybe if Sony took over Destiny, it would get the player numbers back to it once was.
This is Lono's alt account. No, this is not me. It's a phase. He doesn't sound like me at all. Come on.
It would have more developers focused on its success rather than working on 4 incubation projects alongside it. Whether you're a fan or not, Destiny has been successful and is one of the main live service examples. Some fans believe that with the old leadership gone, the game could thrive again. It's still hanging in there, still doing fine for what it is now, but it could be way better. All of that could be true, but just because Sony takes over doesn't mean some magic is going to happen. Sony bought Bungie to learn how to run live service projects in the first place. What happens when they take it over? Will some of the higher-ups who know live service games still be there to help, provide some guidance to Sony? Or will someone completely new show up and project their suit ideas onto developers? We see how Concord went.
Lono's working on AI music and AI alt channels. It all adds up. If this guy starts screaming about his feelings, we'll have a smoking gun. I mean, this right here is the question I have. The burning question I have is, if there is a takeover, does it happen before March? And if it happens before March, does Sony say, take that frickin' game to the woodshed and tell it to look at the pretty flowers? Like, Marathon just shouldn't come out. It should not. And I know people are like, you've had it in for that game from moment one. No, I have. Since the beginning, I have said that when we looked at Concord, and I said that Concord was going to fail, and we looked at Fair Games, I said Fair Game was going to fail. I said the one game that had a shot was Marathon, because they could bring unique things to extraction shooters to make extraction shooters more palatable, more broad, more accessible, or more innovative. I talked about how, like, hero shooter elements were brought to Battle Royale with Apex. There were hero elements brought to, basically a CSGO econ strat style game in Valorant. And I thought, okay, maybe Bungie could pull this off. And I said, listen, if there's somebody who can pull off a brand new live service game, it's going to be Bungie. And then they had their dadgum presentation and their confidence and their pride and their ego. They thought they could showcase a dadgum alpha and that the world would be thrilled and elated and impressed by a minimum viable product that had very little to it and was largely just a piece of derivative slop. Like, let's just call it what it is. And you had a bunch of streamers singing its praises, but I'd really go back and really raise some eyebrows at how much praise was being heaped on this game, because it is not aged well. It is certainly not aged well. And I think that preview events, the press and content creators, they try to stay largely positive. So I don't think anybody was being dishonest, but it really makes it you wonder, it really makes you wonder, why was this thing being treated in that way? I don't know. That really makes you curious. It really makes me skeptical. But I do think that this game is an absolute lame duck that will not get out of the gate. And I know that's another wonderful mix of metaphors specifically designed for Zubair.
Sony might come in, revive Marathon, reignite the fire under Destiny, or it could be a complete dumpster fire. So the way I see it, it's a double-edged sword at the moment. Bungie seems...
I mean, that juxtaposition right there just showcases the problem. Just this static image, right? I just want you to watch this static image roll into movement and gun design and just the feel of Destiny. Just watch this as a sharp juxtaposition.
So the way I see it, it's a double-edged sword.
It's like not even comparable. It's not even comparable. It's literally like looking at a tech test and looking at a finished product. It really truly is. Like, just that still image right into this footage, you can just see that Marathon could not be more of a lame duck. Street Shadow says, devil's advocate for Marathon is that we need to at least see what the changes that they have made since they went the closed door alpha, then decide if it should keep going or stop. No, I don't agree with you. You're making changes to a product that nobody wants, is my point. It's complete wasted effort. It is complete and utter wasted effort. You are putting finishing touches and improvements on a product that nobody wants. It's like it's a car without doors, and you're like, we're making adjustments to the engine and we're making adjustments, to the paint. And it's like, it doesn't have any doors. Like, nobody wants it. Like, nobody wants this product. The demand for Marathon couldn't be further into the ground and in the toilet. It just is non-existent. So, to me, I would argue that the changes they're making are superfluous to the life expectancy of the game. I don't think they're even going to have an impact on it. You're adding window dressing to a house that's got nothing around it, nothing inside of it. It's a shell of a game, and I don't think the changes are going to make enough of a difference. That's fair. That's just my perspective based on my job in gaming. I know I sound harsh when I'm talking about this, but the reality is I said the same thing about Concord. I was like, nobody wants this. Nobody asked for this. There's not demand in the market for it. I said the same thing about arena-based shooters and how fast their player bases would dry up. And it happened to X-Defiant, and then it happened to Splitgate. I'm telling you, it's not hard to see the lack of receptibility and demand in the market for games like this. It really isn't there. It's not there. And if it was there, then you would have had somebody by now, really, really prove it, and it just hasn't happened. I don't think these style games, especially an extraction shooter, I just don't think they have a shot.
At the moment, Bungie seems to be functioning after the first merging that took place and is still ongoing. 3 episodes were released for Destiny last year after the final shape. We just had the Edge of Fate expansion in July, which launched with mixed reviews, but there's still many players playing the game. There's a major update next month, and another expansion set to arrive in December. So while the future is uncertain, as it always is, don't take this for negative and doom and gloom yet, like some people will project onto you online. These changes have been going on, nothing new, but we'll see how it pans out as things unfold.
So that's just some of his commentary on the issues with leadership. Again, the links below for the full videos. I'm gonna get up the last video that I got for you guys on this subject, and the last video I got is from Mint Blitz, and it specifically touches on what we were just talking about, which is Marathon and the future. And in chat, we have more commentary here from Street Shadow saying, if Marathon gets shut down, then I completely endorse a revamp of the D2 Tiger engine or a complete rebuild of Destiny 3. I mean, there's a handful of ways they could approach it. I don't know if you could go back and basically restart the entire universe and do a truly next-gen, truly robust, more MMO looter-shooter style Destiny 1 and then build on top of that. I don't think that would work. I think your best marketing punch would be literally a giant D, a giant D and a giant 3. Destiny 3, boom, boom. You do that, you go nose down, you work on it for 4 or 5 years, properly funded, stop frickin' splitting your bandwidth with Destiny 2 and build a proper dadgum game and get that sucker ready for next gen. I'm here to tell you there's potency and power there, but they've got to want to make it. You got to have enough people on Bungie staff that actually want to make Destiny 3. If you can't get that, if you can't get enough people to make it, then I don't know what exactly the choice would be. You'd have to move on to something new, I would imagine. So Mint Bliss is going to talk about this. This is going to be his commentary on the future. And guys, make sure you're continuing to renew and to gift and to hit those milestones. I still owe you guys a single member over here on YouTube, and I'll get to that in a moment.
Marathon, by the way, the release, the CEO also said they're on track to release it, things haven't changed, and the game will be going ahead. Marathon is being tested right now as we speak, but I have no idea what changes have been made, and I can only hope the players and the broader gaming audience have been listened to. It will forever be crazy to me that Marathon has a rich history of lore, backstory, and already existing strong narrative elements. Add on that Bungie always used to do amazing campaign and multiplayer titles, and then you come up with an extraction shooter that feels clunky, slow, and the story of that even hasn't been written yet. I mean, come on. The Sony CEO also stated that the performance of Concord, which lost hundreds of millions of dollars, definitely factored into decision making. I'd say.
Well, and this is why I do think, thank you Egnarts for renewing your member pluses. Love the show. Thank you so much. Gets us to 128 on the count. Guys, we are back to our roots. Every 25 I gift. So thank you so much for helping bump the line with your renewals there. Yeah, this is why I continue to think if PlayStation's in charge and they get to call the shots on Marathon, I cannot see them bringing it to market. I just can't. The significant commercial failure of Concord prompting them to pull the plug on Ben's game and Blue Point's game, I just continue to think they have got to be trying to leverage. And I thought Stone Spire was going to do this. He's going to do 2 singles. He's going to try and bait it. He wants somebody to gift 20 members. So if somebody drops a 20 bomb, that gets us to the next milestone. Remember, whoever hits it gets it. So if Twitch does it or YouTube does it, that's who gets the gift. Excuse me. So thank you so much, Stone Spire, for doing those single gifteds to set that bait up. Somebody get ready to take this man's bait. He's so faithful about this. And there it is. We are evenly at 130. Let's see if anybody takes the bait and gets us halfway to our pace. We want to end the day at 200 today to be on pace for the week.
Sony and PlayStation are worried that Marathon will be another such case. It very well might be. Even if every perfect change is made to Marathon, there's no guarantee the game will succeed. So many bridges have already been burnt that I genuinely don't know if there's anything that can be done to save it.
He just touched on another aspect that I didn't even touch on. I'm sitting here talking about how there's no demand for the product. But there's also broken trust with people that were looking forward to it. I mean, people who would have actually been your player base of Marathon, even they kind of feel like, well, why the heck would I want to play that game? It was an alpha, it was a minimum viable product, and you stole a bunch of artwork, right? Yo, 20 months from Disciple, thank you so much for renewing your purple membership and bumping us to 131. If anybody drops that 20 bomb, it's now an agent of chaos. Thank you so much. So, I mean, yeah, even the people that were interested in Marathon probably feel right now like, I can't even trust that you guys really believe in this product. It feels like you're really just trying to force it and get it out the door, for unspoken reasons. Like they haven't said, a 20 bomb comes in from Dodevas. He slams it home as we completely try and I think successfully bounce back as a community. Your gifted members, your super chats, your tips, if you use the tip command, all that helps us. We took a bit of a hit. We took a bit of a hit on the first 8 months of this year, and we are already seeing you guys kind of answer the call to bounce us back. So that is definitely something that people have to consider here, is that another FPS co-op roguelite released today called Abyssus, and it's got online co-op. Is that on all platforms? I can't remember. It just released on Steam today. So if there were people that wanted this game, that wanted, it looks like Abyssus is only on Steam, unfortunately. There were people that wanted it. I mean, even they might be shaken in their confidence about it.
Guess is a Splitgate style scenario, an initial population at launch, and then it tapers off over time. The only thing that may save the game is that it has the Bungie name. What Sony said directly about Marathon as a whole is that it will probably launch some point before April 2026, although that's not a commitment. If you were curious as to when Bungie April 2026, although that's not a commitment.
Now think about that. That's not a commitment, and they also said that the game's not currently canceled, but it could end up being canceled. I do think that means that I feel like that's a very, very soft signal, maybe even a wink and a nudge. This thing's dangling over fire, man. I do. I think Marathon's just absolutely dangling over fire. I could see it just not ever coming to market. That was my original prediction, is that they would delay it, and it would never see the light of day after the delay.
If you were curious as to when Bungie is going to show off more new things for Marathon, it'll be in autumn for Americans, so spring for those of you in the Southern Hemisphere. The final thing that the Sony CEO said was that if this launch is cancelled, so if Marathon does get cancelled and doesn't come out, we would need to do a revision of the valuation of Bungie. However,
we are now fixing problems. We believe the launch will happen. If this launch is canceled, okay, so it could be, we would need to do the revision of the valuation. However, as of now, this is not expected. Right? This right here, again, I mean, they're very, very much, this doesn't show confidence to me. we believe this launch will happen. If it gets canceled, we're going to revisit evaluation. But that's not expected. I don't know. This doesn't sound like, oh yeah, this thing's ready to rock. Again, my big pushback on this is going to continue to be, you're making changes and revisions on a project and a product that nobody wants. How is there a single piece of internal market research that they're doing that says this is a viable project? Like this could come out and do well. Like, what in the world? Why? There is something else going on here. It's got to have something to do with the entanglements of the contract and the final payments. I feel it in my bones that there's something else going on here.
But as of now, this is not expected. And that's it. What a day. Bungie has lost its independence. A day I saw coming after the recent history and controversy, but still, it closes a chapter in one of my favorite gaming companies. Growing up, I loved Bungie and the classic Halos that released. Hell, even Destiny 1 still had that charm to me. It's evident over time things changed for the worst. Sony was losing money because of it, so they're stepping in to make good on the money they invested. I genuinely wonder if Destiny 3 will ever happen now. Will Bungie even make a new IP again? Are they going to be able to make their own games anymore? Or is Bungie going to get turned into a glorified support studio for the PlayStation Network?
That observation keeps coming out, and I really don't think that's what you would do with Bungie talent. I don't think you would leverage Bungie talent to be a support studio. That would be, I think, a misuse of all the employees there. I don't think you would do that. I don't. Now, you might slice off some of the studio for things like that, but I really don't think that's what they would do to the studio. I don't think PlayStation sees that as the right call. I mean, they even spoke to the company's talent. They've spoken to that, in that talk where Totoki spoke on, what they sort of thought of the company. They spoke to the talent at Bungie in those remarks. It's the leadership that I think they have issues with.
Either way, it's a big day in gaming. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you all for watching.
There you go. So check out Evaze, Astacross, and Mintblins. Check out their original videos. Those will be linked below. I don't have those just yet because I like to use those with the timestamps, and I can't do that when I'm live. I go back and do that later. So be sure to support the original videos. I will provide those links in the description. Yeah, so as far as I can tell, the future at this company, the future, at Bungie is it's precarious, and I think one of the reasons that we don't really have any answers right now is, I think internally they're sorting all this out right now. I don't think this is a pleasant time to be a Bungie employee. I feel like any day that layoff hammer is going to fall. That layoff hammer is going to drop, and we're going to see sort of the beginnings of that threshing floor. And sadly, it'll likely be people that have nothing to do with the current state of things. It'll just be employees that are not in a position of strength at the company. Like, they'll be expendable, as it were. And that's always the case. And again, given how PlayStation has handled the situation with absorbing employees and spinning up studios, it would, to me, make sense if PlayStation decides to step in here more and try to absorb more. Or again, that's maybe why the language was used that they're looking to do integration. It could be integration into SIE. It could be integration into studios. It could be integration of their own leadership. They may see that as the best option of, let's get the leadership out, put our own leadership in place. But then you really got to ask the question, where are those people even going to come from? Do you have people that really want to go and work at the company? Like, I've talked about this in previous coverage, is that Bungie now has an even more significant problem in that who would even want to go work at the company if this is kind of the state of things? Like, do you actually want to go work there and be under this potential, bad leadership? That's, I think, always going to be an issue when you have a company that sort of falls into, ill repute, or whatever the word would be. Like, their reputation publicly is just not very good. Layoffs are happening, and layoffs and these situations are all seemingly, prompted by and instituted by the groundwork laid by the leadership. Like, do you want to go work there? Like, they have a sort of a bit of a PR problem in that department. Like, if you're trying to get talent at the studio, that's going to be really, really hard to do if you're dealing with, if you're dealing with this level of public downfall, as it were. Which again, I said in the show open, some people view this as like very, very karmic. Like, this is a very karma driven thing, which I obviously see it a little bit differently. I see it more in the realm of justice, that when you run your company like this and you treat people the way they've treated people historically, both employees as well as, people that cover their game, they're sort of getting what they deserve. They're kind of getting what they're getting their comeuppance as a company. And I told people for many years that would happen. I said that you can only run a company like that for so many years. Like, if we go and we read the IGN Bungie Soul, this was written in 2021. I kind of feel like we should almost like read this now with full vision of the company. And because I always said this was a puff piece. This is from Rebecca Valentine. This is the person who wrote the egregiously bad coverage of Black Myth Wukong Studio. It was honestly extremely misleading and defamatory to the company. And it's really, really hypocritical given what she wrote for Bungie here. So this is back in 2021. The battle for Bungie's soul, inside the studio's struggle for a better work culture. How does a massive gaming company fully root out toxic culture and become a truly safe and diverse place to work? Now, the groundwork's already laid here, right? The groundwork's already laid here. You're already doing passive defense work. How does a massive gaming company, they're so big, how could they get rid of this toxic culture? Oh, and it's not just about becoming a safe place for people to work where they're not worried about how they're going to be treated or retaliation culture. We've also got to insert some virtue signaling about a diverse place to work. Because this is what frickin' matters when you have a toxic work culture. This is always the first thing in my mind. Do you have a toxic work culture? Is your HR department actively covering up misconduct? Well, we better worry about diversity. Like, what the frick? Like, this is a byline. Really, I think shows you where we're headed here. Like, this is going to be an absolute work of fiction, or at the very least, an exercise in puffery for the company. In September, Bungie made a huge announcement. After the developer spoke publicly about the desire to push back on toxic work culture, CEO Pete Parsons pulled back the curtain on a number of new initiatives in an effort to recognize our shortcomings, right? So this is called, preemptive damage control. That's what this is. This is damage control. You're well aware that you're potentially going to have things come out. And so you're getting in front of it, okay? Bungie would hire a diversity inclusion director, update hiring practices, improve training and tools, allow anonymous HR reporting, and end forced arbitration. The announcement was lauded across the industry, appearing to be a set of proactive, forward-looking moves and industry-wide working conditions, amid industry-wide condition scandals, right? So again, you've got, again, right on the outset, you're going to hire a diversity inclusion director. This is to me, this is just smoke and mirrors. This is distracting from the real issues of the company. And you'll see that throughout this article, okay? The response from the company, within the company, was different. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why the company itself would feel different about this. Right? Many of its current and former employees felt that their experiences at the company, going back as far as 2011, as recently as this year, because this is written in 2021, right, dramatically clashed with Bungie's virtuous self-portrait. Yeah, that's the understatement of the year. While some praised the news, for many others, hiring a D&I director or ending mandatory arbitration in all employee contracts was far too little, far too late. For others still, it was only one step on a long journey to a potentially better future, but with roadblocks remaining along the way. IGN has spoken to 26 current and former employees. that have worked at Bungie within the last decade. Their accounts of the studio's work culture encompass a wide range of experiences. They span overt sexism, boys club culture, crunch, and HR protection of abusers. We'll talk more about this in a minute, as well as more complex stories of microaggressions, systemic inequalities, and difficulties in being heard. However, interviewees also include a number of more recent employees who, despite their own hurts, truly believe the studio is slowly but steadily improving, are candid about the immense challenge of trying to turn such a massive ship in a better direction, and whose accounts of change line up with the statements made by IGN by Parsons in response to this piece. Now, listen. A number of them are like, oh, this could be better. This is going to fix things out of 26. Keep in mind, there are others that we're going to hear about in a moment that don't feel that way. Every source we interviewed joined Bungie because they wanted to be part of making video games they cared about. But all of them have been forced to grapple personally with the question, how does a massive AAA gaming company of 800 employees fully root out a toxic culture and become a truly safe, diverse, and healthy place to work? Listen, this is just more passive defense work. All right? The people interviewed are not coming to grips with this. Like, how does a big company like this get rid of toxic culture? No way. There's no way they're phrasing it this way. Like, oh man, I had a terrible experience and HR covered up abuse. My real question about this is, how does such a massive company really handle this? What the heck? No. If you've been wronged or you've been bullied into silence and retaliation culture at the company has made you feel unsafe, this is not your concern. Right? This is just more passive puffery for Bungie, a passive defense force of like, well, they're really big, so let's give them some time to fix this. There is seemingly no better microcosm for Bungie's historic company-wide cultural troubles than its narrative team, which has experienced toxic leadership, issues with crunch, and at times unmanageable separation between ideas of old Bungie and new Bungie culture and more, all within the last 5 or 6 years. We spoke with a number of individuals who were close to or part of the narrative team and painted a picture of a severely divided group whose problems originated as far back as Destiny 1. Now, I always had a theory that when Destiny 1 had to sort of start over, I always said that they had creative dissonance at the company ever since that moment. I think you're seeing evidence of that right here. Several sources spoke of a narrative team lead from time who appeared to suffer massive burnout during the project, creating an increasingly toxic work environment for others on the team. Enough so that team members kept a countdown of days since the last explosion on a whiteboard. Many people I spoke to were familiar with the story of him throwing a chair at a window because he felt others were ruining his creative vision of the game. And yet, he stayed at the studio for several years, eventually leaving and then being invited back to do contract work for Destiny 2. Some sources, who had encounters with him during this later period, said that he would frequently issue narrative direction despite no longer being a senior team member, and would become angry when he felt the Destiny 2 writers were deviating from his original vision of Destiny 1. One source told a story of him yelling at her over the phone so aggressively that she was brought to tears, and she subsequently refused to be on phone calls with him without a third party present. You know what's funny is, this was actually very common at the company. I had a phone call where I was berated by one of their community managers, yelled at and cussed at. I spoke to another content creator who had the exact same experience. It's a real great company, right? Now, this lead was not the only narrative team member impacted by burnout on Destiny 1, and after much of the team left following its release, Bungie assembled a new team for Destiny 2 that, over time, became staffed by women and people of color at a ratio higher than any other teams at the largely white and male Bungie. All right, I really want to let's just read this and really think about what's being stated here. I really want you to think about this, and this is why I call this a puff piece, because you just outlined toxic work culture, a guy losing his mind to the point that someone's brought to tears and refuses to be on the phone with him unless somebody else is present. And the answer to this is a new team that became more staffed by women and people of color at a ratio higher than many other teams at the largely white and male Bungie. That's not a solution to the problem that we just read about. This has nothing to do with it. If you have a toxic work culture, the answer is not, well, we need to throw more women and people of color at it. That'll fix the problem. The guy threw a chair at a window. right? You had somebody who was acting unhinged at the company and seemingly there was no accountability for his behavior. The answer is not, well, restructure the team and make it more diverse. This again is absolute puffery. This has nothing to do with the situation. However, it was run during this period by a series of white male leaders who, according to many of sources, made life miserable for the writers for years. Do you see what the frick was just insinuated passively? I really read this carefully. The team was run by a series of white male leaders who, according to many of our sources, made life miserable for the writers for years. Good Lord. This is the person who wrote the hit piece on Black Myth Wukong, by the way, that was rooted in a bunch of half-truths and falsehood. You got to get those white male leaders out of there, boys. That's the problem. Jiminy Christmas. Most of those we spoke to were reluctant to have these people named in an article like this, fearing repercussions either for themselves or for others who had vocally complained about perpetrators in the past. Now, this is the thing that gets glossed over. The retaliation culture at the company is still well in place when this article is penned. These people don't even want to name the perpetrators. They're like, nah, retaliation culture's pretty serious here. But we don't get to this sentence without having to hack through your BS virtue nonsense that has nothing to do with the problems at the company. The problem wasn't that you had white male leaders being toxic and were yelling at people. Them being male or them being white had nothing to do with the fact that they were toxic leaders. You got to hack your way through this nonsense to get to the fact that, oh, wow, retaliation culture is still well in place at the company. Oh, okay. And here you sit writing puffery for them. While the majority of our sources also wish to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal or harm for their careers. You see this word right here? You see this word right here? Majority, chat. Blip. Of course there's a blip. Of course there's a blip. When I'm making a very good point. Frickin' YouTube. Get your fricking act together. While the majority of our sources also wish to remain anonymous for fear of reprisal or harm for their careers. This word right here is killer. They spoke to 26 people. They spoke to 26 people, and the majority of them wish to remain anonymous because they don't want reprisal or harm. One ex-Bungie employee was willing to be named, Cookie Hilponia, a woman of color whose stories of the team's turmoil were corroborated by a number of others. Many of our sources saw the plight of the narrative team from the outside, but Hilponia was mired directly within it. Hired initially as a contractor in 2016, she first started at Bungie as a copy editor, then later as a full-time employee on the narrative team through 2019. Right? Hilponia recalled that when she first stepped in, Bungie hadn't had a lot of editing oversight on the Destiny franchise and had not previously focused very much on its story consistency and continuity. That led to a leadership that appeared to operate without normal professional boundaries. As Hilponia puts it, they just had a bunch of people who wrote things and kind of had the run of the place. One leader from earlier in this period was described by one of our anonymous sources as a sexist nightmare who yelled in meetings and would throw papers across tables. Multiple people told us that he would frequently rewrite things at the last minute, often on his way to voice recording sessions. Writers wouldn't learn about the changes to their work until after the voice lines had already been recorded. When people objected to his demeanor, he told them they needed thicker skins and to learn how to take criticism. He called one woman on the team an unmanageable bitch. Other sources said he was literally the worst person I've ever worked for. I mean, that's rough. That's rough. I mean, you are literally the worst person I've ever worked for. That's rough right there. He was eventually let go, but was replaced by what our sources say was a similarly antagonizing men. One frequently made sexist remarks, but also complained about reverse sexism, and on at least one occasion made homophobic remarks to a queer colleague. He would openly mock his team members' ideas in meetings and then play his mockery off like a joke, and would frequently take credit for the work others had done. Hilponia recalled on occasion when he said lead attempted to hand off their editing duties to a relatively new employee during a meeting with top Bungie leadership about the new story continuity, asking her What was it you do anyway? When Habonia confronted him about it later and asked why her task was being given away, he told her he was just joking around. Good golly. A third lead was called callous, hierarchical, authoritarian, incurious, cruel leader by one anonymous source. You can tell you're dealing with the writing team. Like, look at the words being used here. Instead of like, he's a jerk, it's like a thesaurus fell out of the sky. He's callous, hierarchical, authoritarian, incurious, and cruel. Perspicacious, churlish. Like, what the frick, man? You're definitely dealing with the writing team here. Dear Lord. Dear Lord. Haponia said he would frequently ask her to do secretarial and administrative tasks like taking notes at meetings or look up information that he could have looked up himself despite her position as a writer or editor on the team. Others recalled that he frequently insulted people who stood up for themselves, including publicly dressing down the narrative team after they accommodated a last-minute request and asked that such a rush not happen again. On another occasion, he separated and cornered an employee who stood up to him to yell at them. Multiple sources say he also regularly made racist remarks, including a lunch where one source recalled him making a number of inappropriate quips about Latin American gangs. This is like Michael Scott. Like, they work for a very angry and unkind Michael Scott. Like, this is terrible, right? This is all going on, right? And people are afraid to even name this guy or confront this guy because, retaliation culture is quite established at the company. This really contextualizes everything that happened to me, if you really think about it. It really does. It really contextualizes, me being banned from Twitch because I defended myself, and then me being banned from Destiny because people were investigating Bungie's involvement and everything. Like, their retaliation culture permeates all the way outside their doors. Even aside from its turbulent senior members, the narrative team was in chaos throughout the development of Destiny 2 and a number of its follow-up expansions. Constantly having to ship new content, it saw high turnover and burnout as a result. Haponia recalled an ongoing struggle to get narrative contractors hired full-time to help ease the burden of the team. Even though the department was overwhelmed, it was repeatedly denied requests to bring on new full-time team members, and contracts would often not be renewed or extended in time, resulting in month-long periods where the departments were left understaffed. Like, this is also an insight. This is also an insight into how damaging it was for 343 to have so many people on contract leaving, because look at what it did to this team as well. Like, this is an insight to what that does to creative process. Like, you can't have that level of turnover, in your staff. Those close to the team describe its members working 60, 70, 80, even 100-hour weeks during some expansions, frequently with no breaks in between crunch periods. One team member crunched while so sick they were unable to type and had to have someone else type for them while they dictated. Jiminy Christmas. Another source said that the team had been told not to crunch as part of a growing studio push to eliminate the practice. The idea was that the studio would simply cut features if crunch was the only way to get them done. However, many of the writers felt they had been backed into a corner after the painful release of Destiny 2's first DLC expansion, Curse of Osiris. Curse of Osiris' story had been lambasted on Reddit, with a new female narrative team members being singled out by the community for harassment, death threats, and vitriol. Yeah, people knew that they were females and that's what they were blaming it on. Like, is that even true? Did we even know back then who was working on what? Our sources say these women didn't receive support inside the studio or from the community team for what they were going through, and multiple sources were aware of one member of leadership still at the studio who emailed Reddit comments about these women to other company leaders in a seemingly bid to tear down the narrative team because players didn't like the story. Okay, so this seems like internal projection. Like, they're internally having to deal with this jackass. I don't think we on the outside knew the names of the people, like the individual names of the people. And how do you even have access to them? Like, did the public and did the people on Reddit have access to these employees? No, it sounds like internally you had an idiot at the company leveraging the nonsense being said on Reddit in a toxic way. The same leader is also said to have been dismissive during a meeting about the controversy, explaining that no one should be worried because they were just going to bring the Destiny 1 writing team to solve everything. In fact, multiple people familiar with the writing team related stories of its members being treated poorly by other departments at the studio, being consistently derided when the game was received badly. As a result, the narrative team was afraid that what would happen if it shipped something else that appeared to the community to be incomplete or not up to standard, so they continued to crunch, some of them going so far as to hide the overtime from their leads so they wouldn't force story cuts. Holy crap. No, she was in the vid doc for Curse of Osiris. Yeah, they're saying that the actual writing team, though. Did I misread that? With a few female narrative team members being singled out. How are they singled out? I was completely in the dark back then. I didn't know the name of anybody who worked on a single thing. How did people get their names? Crunch was exacerbated by the constant need for revisions and last-minute changes, often worsened by the constant conflicts over who had control of the story. Creative direction overall was fraught due to the pull of different groups and powers at the studio. Some of Bungie's old guard were especially precious about the vision of Destiny 1. Yeah, the old guard. Got to watch out for those old uniforms, and reluctant to change anything about the tone, characterizations, or direction of the story of the game that moved into Destiny 2 and its subsequent expansions. This was especially frustrating for the team in cases where the vision had never been explicitly defined in the game or elsewhere, but only existed as ideas in the heads of people who no longer even worked in the narrative. Yeah, that old guard wants to maintain their control, right? Another issue was the development of cinematics, which were considered a prestige project, largely written separately from the main writing team in a star chamber. The cinematics team frequently tried to operate independently from the main narrative team, resulting in disconnects between established lore, planned quest narratives, and major story beats. Like I said, they've had creative dissonance at the company since the launch of Destiny 1, right? They've had creative dissonance for a very, very long time. And I don't know if they've ever truly gotten out from beneath that shadow, you know. The cinematic team's decisions, Hipponia and others recalled, would override decisions made by the narrative team, forcing last-minute rewrites and more crunch. The clash of these different interests caused further troubles as underrepresented writers and allies in the team endeavored to make Destiny's story more inclusive and thoughtful in its portrayals. Yeah, but again, this is not the problem. Continuing to inject this as a problem. The problem was a dysfunctional company and toxic work culture and retaliation. This is not the main issue. This shouldn't even be included. If you've got a level of toxicity at the company, it doesn't matter if you're trying to do this or not. Everything's being treated so poorly. People are being treated poorly. Those familiar with the writing team were aware of numerous scenarios where higher-up male narrative team members wanted to portray women in ways that were degrading, tone-deaf, and casually sexist. The non-lead writers, both women and allies, would push back, fighting. What does this even mean? What is this? Why? What is this? What are you talking about? Would push back, fighting to tell the kinds of hopeful and empowering stories with Destiny's women that were so often told through its male characters. I would really be interested in what the frick they were trying to do with the women, because historically speaking, the only women in the stories were never portrayed in this way ever. I don't know what you're talking about, whether it's Amanda Holiday or you've got Eris Morn, you've got Ikora. What characters would have ever been even? How would you even do this? Yeah, Mara Sav. I don't think there's a single character that you would have ever been able to be degrading or like casually sexist. Like there is great, not only diversity and representation in Destiny historically, but the women were always awesome, if not sometimes cooler and stronger or more interesting. I don't get this. Like, you don't need to empower the stories. The stories have always been inclusive and good. I don't get that at all. There was not a vacancy of that in the game. There wasn't. Central figures in the game are either women or a person of color. So like I don't understand. Also, Destiny's in a fantasy realm, so like you've got people with blue skin. So this is an odd thing to focus on and care about. You know, Eris has got like light green skin. What's his freaking name? Lance Riddick's character. I can't remember his dadgum name. He's got blue skin. Like I don't understand why you would fixate on any of this. While they did have a number of success on the front over the years, it was often extremely challenging and painful for those bringing issues forward to be heard. Savala, thank you. His name just escaped me. I haven't played the game in so long. Well, they were talking about what was going on in the writing room. You can't read it cynically. No, what I'm saying is, right, why would you be trying to tell the kinds of hopeful and empowering stories of Destiny women that were so often told through its male characters? This sentence makes it sound like there has been an absence of good stories about Destiny's women. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Some of the earliest stories center around the women. Eris Morn, Mara Sov, Ikora. Again, this makes it seem like it was lopsided. Like, yeah, there's all these great stories that are typically told through the male characters. We need some for the women. I'm like, what do you mean? I don't think there was a lack of this or an imbalance. From some of the earliest expansions in Destiny 1, women were central figures. Like Marasov especially. Like, what the frick? A number of sources told us stories of male narrative leads at the studio who pushed forward storylines for characters like Eris Morn, Marasov, Anna Bray, Ikora Ray, Soraya Hawthorne, and others that leaned on harmful stereotypes of women and mental health struggles, often despite objections from women and support allies across the studio. I would be really curious what they were pushing for. I could go on for a long time about all the ways women have been made to stand by as men on the team have written characters in baffling, unrecognizable ways, said a source familiar with the matter. Can they point to any examples? I don't get this at all, unless it was all scrapped somehow, which would mean that it didn't make it into the game. Like, what harmful stereotypes for any of these characters are there? I don't know. You'd have to outline that for me, because I feel like those are all awesome characters. Another example of a time when a diverse member of the writing team were not listened to is the instance of Devram K, a scout players meet in the EDZ location who provides missions and talks about his love of food and tea. At one point in Destiny 2's development, a member of the writing team added in a tiny piece of dialogue for Devram referring to his missing partner. It was a single small line among many other lines intended to be said by both Devram and many other characters who would simply comment on similar circumstances about their relationships, thoughts, and feelings. The line passed multiple edits and checks and was put into a build of the game before someone high up at the studio noticed it and demanded it to be taken out, or else they couldn't ship the game in Russia or China because of a mere implication of gay romance. I mean, if you want your game to be received globally, I mean, this might not be somebody being hateful and unkind. They're literally just thinking about marketing, right? Disney does the same thing with their posters, you know. It's a sad reality, but it's reality, you know. Disney has to, like, take, anybody who's black cannot be prominent on a poster or even present on posters in certain regions of the world. And then gay romance is certainly going to cause problems in certain regions of the world. So this doesn't necessarily come from somebody being hateful. They might literally be protecting the actual marketability of the game, because that's sometimes, sadly, equally as important as, like, trying to put something like this in the game. Because if the game suffers financially, you might not be there able to write about your gay romance, right? You might be packing it up because you put stuff in your game that made it unreceived in certain regions of the world. The issues received attention across the studio when it was sent to a QA tester to fix a bug, causing an internal uproar. Eventually, the line was adjusted to have Devram just talk about someone named Mark without any reference to who it was. This made it into the final game, and Bungie ended up being lauded for including a gay character, especially as Devram's voice actor confirmed their relationship to media long after, unaware of the stir it had caused at the studio. I was going to say, I thought we knew he was gay, right? I thought we knew he was gay. I was like, I don't think anybody was in the dark about how, homie was a gay man. One source recalled being furious. Bungie's writers had tried to gently make their story more inclusive with Destiny's first canon gay relationship. Bungie leadership had tried to stop it, but then got to enjoy positive attention anyway. This is really, really interesting. If Bungie leadership was very much opposed to this, with all their, like, virtue signaling on Twitter, like, at what point did that change where they're like, yay rainbows? You know what I'm saying? Like, this is really interesting that they were like, how dare you? I mean, it really makes the virtue see-through and transparent to me. Like, it's not genuine. You know what I mean? It's just public posturing. In all these situations, the members of the writing team who fought for change would routinely be told that they're difficult to work with, not supportive of their leaders, or were aggressive or abrasive and needed to be better at taking criticism. And listen, let's not pretend this might actually be true. Right? I'm just going to be honest with you guys. The people that get really gung-ho about this stuff on Twitter and are really all about this kind of initiatives, listen, they can seem a little unhinged at times, and they can seem like they might be hard to work with, okay? I mean, if you pay attention to social media and the candor and the aggressiveness with which people talk about these things, I'm not surprised that we're seeing this type of language used about them. Like, are they perfect? Are we going to pretend that these employees on the writing team are saints and they're super easy to work with and they don't have their own hang-ups and their own chips on their shoulder? You know what I'm saying? Like, some of this could actually be true. Maybe you were difficult to work with. Maybe you didn't support your leaders and undercut them or were aggressive and abrasive, you know, and you didn't take criticism well. This is what toxicity does in the workplace. It creates factions and it creates battles. And a lot of these people that were on this writing team might have started doing things intentionally to cause this sort of discord at the company. There's no way to know. We can't act like these people are as pure as the driven snow. They're the only one talking about it. You're getting one side of the story, and we all know what that one side of the story can do. It can shade things to make them look like the hero and others look like the villain. So I'm a little suspicious to just take this and be like, oh no, yeah, you guys were great and super easy to work with and it's everybody else's fault. They had an entire season devoted to Saint and Osiris, talking about how much they loved each other for a whole episode. Yeah, obviously the culture of the company has changed, Ashen, because they very clearly have no problem putting gay stuff in the game now. And I don't mean gay stuff like as a pejorative. Like, literally there's gay stuff in the game, like gay people. These criticisms were often used as feedback when the team pushed for promotions after each new challenging release period, with several being turned down time and time again. Again, this could be valid. Right? This could be valid. Maybe you didn't deserve to be promoted. You know? Maybe you guys were hard to work with. Maybe you're part of the equation here. Maybe both sides of the road here are partakers in the toxicity. Hipponia specifically was told she couldn't get promoted because she wasn't good enough at the game. What? Despite the fact that her core narrative responsibilities were unrelated to gameplay design. But when she asked to be given time at work to play and improve, even offering to tie those hours into specific work tasks, her request was denied. She also said that her own stress levels skyrocketed during her time at Bungie, increasing her need for anti-anxiety medication and therapy, and ultimately resulting in stress-related gastrointestinal issues, which required surgery. Now, this is real, okay? I'm not even going to remotely cast doubt on this. I know exactly what this is, right? High levels of anxiety can completely jack you up. I still have blood pressure issues this day because of everything I've been through. My blood pressure will spike sometimes on the annual, sort of anniversary of everything that happened to me. So this is very real, and this is terrible that people go through this. It doesn't mean that you were a stand-up employee and didn't cause some of these problems, but it certainly means that these companies have got to consider how employees are treated and what it can do to them. This can have long-term effects on a person's health. Hipponia was not alone. Other sources close to the narrative saw their colleagues grow increasingly stressed and broken down as they experienced more health issues as time went on. This is why crunch is counterproductive. You get bad work, and then you get employees that feel bad, which just leads to more bad work. In 2019, the situation became untenable. The entire writing staff tried a last-ditch effort to mediate their constant conflict with their leads with HR, but were once again told they needed to try harder to work with the people who were making their lives miserable daily, despite the team reiterating that the leads did not appear to be making efforts to build these same bridges on their end. Many wrote letters to CEO Pete Parsons begging for help. They never heard back. Oof. Now listen, y'all. That's bold. All right. You either genuinely feel helpless, or this is another like, what is this? Is this like sedition? I mean, you're going above your boss's head to tattle. Like, you're going to make this generally makes things worse. So they were either genuinely desperate, or this was another piece of the toxic culture at the company. Right? Like, enough is enough. We're going to dad, I wasn't until multiple writers quit or threatened to quit all at once, including every woman on the narrative team, that Bungie finally dismissed the leads responsible for the chaos and began to take the team's concerns seriously. Okay, this tells me they were desperate and there was genuine problems, right? This doesn't mean they were pure and perfect and didn't have their own faults and flaws, but the fact that they threatened to quit right, and this got results, tells me they were pretty dadgum desperate. Those connected to the narrative team totally say that things were say that things have improved. With more funding and employees to share the load, new leads specifically tasked with helping the department recover, but it ultimately took a sacrifice of many people's careers and mental and emotional well-being to get there. Now, keep in mind, this is 2019. This is the lead up to 2020. And none of this is surprising. This is going on at the company this entire time. Guys, if you haven't hit the like button yet, hit the like button. While it may be the best example, narrative is far from the only department that have suffered in this way. In fact, our sources pointed to issues within almost every major team at the company. Some noted the hypocrisy at work here. A Bungie 7 stated company values. First on the list is teams are stronger than heroes. We hold ourselves to each other to the highest standard of mutual respect, inclusivity, and support, reads the company statement. Knowing that teams whose members speak their mind and take risks will accomplish what no individual ever could. Our wins are always team wins. According to those we spoke to, this translated to a bit of shorthand internally, namely that Bungie doesn't tolerate a-holes. Leadership, including Parsons, in his response to this article, says Bungie doesn't put up with the kind of rockstar culture that at other companies has led to problematic popular individuals taking advantage of the position to harm others, be that through harassment, toxicity, and other forms of abuse. Holy crap. I mean, that is so not true. This is so not true. In the recent reports and the recent leaks on this, the good old boys are still at the company, making it hell for everybody else. I mean, and I would say Parsons is one of them from everything we've heard. I mean, this is still just sharply ironic to even include this. Many of our sources say that the company line has, up until this very recently, simply been not true. Almost everyone we spoke to has stories of at least one, if not multiple individuals with long histories at Bungie that seem to be able to get away with anything, protected by either those above them in leadership chain or long-serving HR employees. Now, you're going to remember when I covered this at the time in 2021, I said that more would come out later, right? I said more would come out later, that there was no way we had just seen the tip of the iceberg. Right, and I think Chris Barrett is one of those that got ousted, and the proof with his emails and his DMs, he was extremely lacking in self-awareness and was very predatory, whether he knew it or not. That's what his actions were, and I don't even think he's probably the worst offender at the company based on everything that we've heard. When I read Bungie's response to Activision Blizzard, I laughed. One former employee said, that was not my experience there. They have that core value that they don't tolerate a-holes, even if they're rock stars, but they totally do. All that's aspirational. Those are the values they want to get to, but they're not enforcing them. The stories of Bungie's problematic rock stars go way back to its success as the creator of Halo. Some names only came up once or twice. Others we heard repeatedly across multiple different departments and over many years of Bungie history. So, we're bucking up against my schedule right now. We're bucking up against my schedule. Basically, the article goes on to talk about more of the things that have happened, more of that culture, and then it sort of ends with this commitment from Parsons and this sort of diversity virtue signal, and he comes with I don't know, they even have an update in here from December of 2021. I've never seen this. Multiple anonymous sources has told IGN that the original Bungie Diversity Committee had shut down before being revived in its new construction. And while Bungie had not replied to this particular detail before publication, they also since commented with additional information to clarify that the committee was not shut down. As we understand it under this new context, it had instead struggled along for several months before being reformed as it is today. Bungie specifically passed along the following statement from Karen Schumann, current president of the Bungie Diversity Committee. Okay, so that was a bit of the reporting that needed to be corrected. So Parsons basically is he has these stats in hand about the diversity of the company and things that they're doing with women. But we're going to have more women and more persons of color in positions. It completely does not answer the toxicity at the company, the retaliation culture at the company. At the time that I covered that, I had former employees reach out and they said that they liked my coverage because I called out the fact that it was basically a puff piece and it was trying to paint Bungie as the hero and that nothing had really changed. I think we're seeing evidence of that today. I do. I think the continued, leaks and cracks in the surface and cracks in the mask continue to come out, and I think that's going to continue. And that's going to continue. I think there is still significant amounts of toxicity at the company. Retaliation culture is still well in place at the company, And it likely is one of, not the reason, but it is one of the reasons that they're in the situation that they're in right now. Right? They're in a not great situation with respect to demand for the product, as well as Echoes of the End in your wish list is available for purchase. Okay, so Echoes of the End is now available. Okay, let's grab this and get this installed. Wait, how's it doing? Okay. Confirm purchase. I'll get this installed. We're going to do Hell Is Us and Echoes of the End. I got 2 gameplay streams planned for you guys. So do me a favor, if you haven't done so already, go crazy on the like button over here on YouTube. Try to get us to 400 likes before we move on to a new segment. We will be diving in to some gameplay here. We're going to start with the Hell Is Us demo. So try to get that like count up. I am going to take a brief break. We appreciate you guys so much. No evidence but the massive player decline after Lightfall and player complaints. Yep, this is Cope. Enjoy your day. Who are you talking to? Majority of the player base didn't like it. It's not about me. This started because you said it only happened at Lightfall, and I counter with evidence. You may not like being challenged with evidence, but I'm not here to make you believe the truth. What exactly is the debate point being debated, Street Shadow? And David, by the way, you're talking to somebody who's like well informed. Like Street Shadow's not just blowing smoke. They are they're usually, it's pretty evident that they're connected and they're pretty informed. Is it confirmed Sony Takeover on Bungie? They literally said it in like a shareholders call that they are restructuring and taking over the company. Yes, like that has been stated. So we don't know what that will look like. There was even more elaborate statements that I read through or Astacross read through in a video that I reacted to talking about integration. And I don't know what that integration is going to look like. Is that leadership from PlayStation integrating into Bungie? Is that Bungie employees being integrated into SIE? I'm not actually sure. So we went back and we even looked at that I've always called it a puff piece from IGN, trying to make Bungie look like the hero back in 2021 when it was clear that they had a serious problem with respect to, toxicity and retaliation culture at the company. Let's see. So there's a graphics mode. There's performance is the default here. Vertical look needs to be inverted for me. Okay. Give me 1 second, and then I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to dive into Hell Is Us. This was worthwhile analysis. Thank you. He is talking about the change to make Saint 14 and Osiris a couple, which was revealed in 2020. He is stating that this happened only at Lightfall and has said this is why Lightfall failed, according to him. Oh, no, yeah. That's not the first time they did anything like that. That's factually inaccurate. Yeah. And that's also not why anything has failed. I don't think there's been any significant content failings of Destiny that has anything to do with, they put gay characters in it. I mean, that certainly turned some people off, but not to the degree that they would have the player count numbers and issues that they've been dealing with. So, do me a quick favor, if you haven't already, take a quick look and make sure you've hit like. I will be right back. Okay. All right, so we're going to go here. We're going to pull up my console. We're going to pull up console audio. I am really, really hopeful that this game kind of lands with me, because I've been following it for a while, and I even argued that like this game could be a sleeper hit this year, and hopefully it's good. Solid demo, played on Steam a while back. Okay, creator dashboard, stream manager. Checking out the demo. All right, we'll switch directories. Music's cool. Guys, make sure too when we go over to this new stream that you go crazy on that light count. Starting over with the new stream can be really, really rough, but when you guys go crazy on the light count, it really, really helps. I know that seems kind of silly, but it is true. And Purple, you don't have to do anything. And YouTube, you just have to click the link in chat. Or you can ride the redirect. Redirect's really inconsistent, so if you want to just avoid redirect, just click that link in chat. Make sure and smash like on your way out today. Thank you so much for checking out this video. This is going to be me diving in brand new to the Hell Is Us gameplay of the demo. The Hell Is Us demo gameplay stream that I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. And they've got lenient, balanced, merciless. We're just going to go right down the middle here with balanced. I did a talk show earlier today talking about Bungie and being taken over by Sony. So if you want to check that out, be sure to check that out. I'm going to end that stream and bring people over with redirect. And as I do that,